that, for some of you that aren't familiar, Hidden Wings is kind of a school and a program that is offered right here on Atterdag in downtown Solvang. It's specifically for students and young adults to try to help them bridge that gap from high school and all the services that they get in school to growing up to be young adults and trying to actually be productive. It's a very great organization. It's put together by Pastor Jim Billington and his wife, and Julia, and that was put together by Ryan Abbott, one of the students or young adults that has been there for about the past 6 months, and they're very grateful for the city of Solvang, to the city of Solvang, for providing the park that they actually go to. And so that was what prompted that, and some suggestions that he had done. So I told him I would put that together for him. I see a hand raised, and I'm wondering if that is actually Ryan. Is there in Zoom?
We've seen Galaxy 801 hand raised. Is that something?
Hi guys,
Hey Ryan.
How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm obviously thankful for the city there, obviously, with your new contributions to the pickleball courts and everything. So thank you for that. You know, we went walking today, and I was looking at some of the things that I was kind of shocked that there, but it's past the pickleball courts where the empty lot is, where there's large bins of dried up wood and everything. Is that eventually going to be get cleaned up, kind of, or more presentable? It looks right now it's like almost people are dumping things there, like an old barbecue pit over there, and then there's signs from the city of Solvang, and like that are sitting over there. So that's just one thing I noticed that would look better, if it ever got cleaned up.
We'll look into that.
Mayor, if I may, we do have a major project going forward with already adopted budget this year, including some grant funding that will definitely be addressing all of the issues that you're talking about. So look forward to those improvements.
Again, Ryan, thank you for those suggestions. I know you're a big user of the day trips, according to Jenny. And for all of you that may or may not know, Ryan is also one of the cashiers at Valley Fresh. So just so you're all familiar with that. So
The best cashier at Valley Fresh.
it's the one I go to.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome, Ryan.
All right.
So yeah, I don't, that's just one of those hidden wings to me is a place that I feel like I should be there. Not a lot of people know that I'm autistic, but during COVID is when I got my official diagnosis of autism. So I've been going there on and off for 2 years, but it's officially been 6 months at Hidden Wings.
Well, we're glad that you're going, and we're glad that the Billingtons have put that together for all of the students and young adults in the autism spectrum. So thank you again for presenting. Appreciate it.
And there's a letter if you want me to send them out to you guys in an email, but an article that was printed recently. So
If you could send that to me, and I'll make sure that gets out.
okay, we'll do.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right.
All right, now if there's any public communications, Madam Clerk, if you'd read this part in the agenda.
Public communications, non-agenda and consent agenda items, written or verbal. The council welcomes your input. At this time, you may address the council on items not on the agenda and consent calendar. Time limit is 3 minutes. We have in person, speaker number 1, Kim Jensen. you like to come forward, Kim?
Mr. Mayor, you councilman, and I'm just here and representing the city, or representing the Vikings charity group. We have a blood drive on the 21st and 22nd, so it's next week, and I'm looking for everyone to participate, as many that can be there, would appreciate it. Every 2 seconds, someone requires some blood. Every 15 seconds, someone needs somewhere in them it needs platelets. If we can be heroes in some way or another by just donating 1 hour of our time to be with a nurse here at St. As at the Vets Hall and contribute 1 pint of blood, or if more, you can do that with the platelets, you can make a big difference. We could save over 1,000 lives. 1 pint of blood represents 3 people that can be saved. And I think it's real important that here in this community, the Vikings have continued, and I'm just one of many people that have come forward to ask that. We always ask the Valley to be a participant, and they all come by talent now comes here, and they do this twice a year. This is our 2nd drive. And if everyone can participate, we can make a big difference. So that's all I ask. Everyone be there. It's next Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 o'clock till 6:30.
Where, Kim?
At the Vets Hall?
The Vets Hall.
The 21st and 22nd.
21st, 22nd. Tuesday and Wednesday.
Are you gonna come, Robert? Because I'm gonna be volunteering there, and I'll be glad to stick a needle in your arm.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you for all that the Vikings do as well. Next.
Our next person that would like to speak is Eric Hutchins. Would you like to come forward, sir?
Councilpersons, in the interest of brevity, I'm going to read from a letter and also to rescue you from a first draft, and then I'll just distribute the letter to you. This concerns the appointment of someone that I believe is eminently unqualified to serve even on an advisory committee for this town, and I would state it as such. Passing over the appointment of intelligent adults with years and sometimes decades of retail business experience to appoint a 16-year-old to this community's most economically important advisory committee defies both common sense and wisdom. This action raises the question, is the appointment of someone eminently unqualified to sit on a key advisory council instead of any one of several highly qualified candidates evidence of some new political fad or fashion? Should we, for example, start encouraging 12 to 16-year-olds to vote in local elections or run for local office? I urge the Solvang City Council to uphold the public trust and to avoid the appearance of impropriety by appointing the best qualified individuals to its committees. Further, I urge the council to rescind the appointment of this undoubtedly gifted 16-year-old and refrain from appointing anyone else to its advisory committees that, by virtue of age, is far less qualified than others seeking to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Our next person to speak is Matt Vanderlinden. If you'd like to come forward, sir.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Yurg and council members. Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and Utilities Director. So I've come forward this evening during the public comment period to announce my upcoming retirement. And I have a brief written statement I would like to read, if you don't mind. Dear Mayor Yurg, council members, city manager, city attorney, new city clerk, and other coworkers, and Solvang residents, I thought it would be simpler and clear to announce my retirement to all of you at the same time. I'm so very thankful for having been given the opportunity 11 years ago to come work for the City of Solvang as your Public Works Director and City Engineer. When I arrived, the average term of prior Solvang Public Works Directors was less than 2 years. And the longest term ever served by a previous Public Works Director was only 4 years. I'm proud to say I never backed away from any challenge, and I've worked hard to complete many difficult long-term projects and bring true progress to the City of Solvang. I was blessed to have several talented, dedicated, and hard-working coworkers. None of my accomplishments would have been possible without their support and teamwork. But now, after 11 years and many accomplishments, I plan to retire on December 31st of this year, 2021. In a few weeks, I will be submitting my paperwork to CalPERS. Although I'm leaving, I'm committed to the City of Solvang's success and would like to leave the city in a strong position with a smooth transition. That's why I'm giving over 3 months' notice of my retirement. This should allow for a smooth transition and proper handoff of projects. I would hate to see any of the critical long-term projects get sidetracked or fall by the wayside, such as Phase 2 and 3 of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project, amendment of the city's Riverwells permit, the pavement management program, the stormwater management program, the San Ynez Valley Transit, the municipal facilities master plan, implementation of the groundwater sustainability plan, update of our water master plan, and renewal of the wastewater treatment plant waste discharge permit, just to name a few. I plan to engage in this process through December to aid in the success of your new Public Works and Utilities Directors. Should you desire my assistance after that, I will be happy to assist the city in a limited capacity. In closing, thank you again for the opportunity to serve you. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I believe that's the end of public comments.
That's the written public comments for here.
That is the written public comments for here.
Anyone that would like to say anything first before I move it out there?
Yeah, just one thing. I wanted to talk to Matt for a second. Since I became involved with the city at all, Matt has been the one who I would go to if I had questions about almost anything. I'm saddened to hear that you're gonna leave. I understand. But just wanted to say thanks.
You're very welcome.
I guess I'd like to just say the same thing, that I've been here a lot longer than Councilmember Infante, and we share the offices occasionally, and a lot of special events and maps and all that type of stuff. So again, you've been, to me, sometimes the glue that's held this city together, and I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Matt, I have a very large poster in my office of the water system in California, and I think about it and you all the time because you taught me most. And the late Fred Koval, everything I need to know about water in the state of California and in the city of Solvang. And thank you. You've helped me a lot.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for talking with me when I first started this endeavor and bringing me up to speed on the issues that you've overseen, and I appreciate your help since then as well. Good luck.
Thank you.
So that was the end of the written Are there any in-house that would like to speak on matters, again, that are not on the agenda or only on the consent calendar that are in the audience? Seeing none, do we have any out in Zoom or on telephone?
If anybody on Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom or unmute yourself. No
Seeing
public
none?
comment.
All right. We'll bring it back and we'll move now to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If we can have my screen up, today we are welcoming, actually, now we can show Anna Marie herself right here. So its first announcement being that
Please
we
stand.
have and the city clerk with us today. Anna Marie Porter has joined the city just 2 weeks ago, and this is her first public meeting of the year. I would like to just, if you can show us, read a little bit about Anna Marie's background, where she comes from, and introduce her to the council and the community. Anna Marie Porter is a dedicated public servant with years of experience in the public and private sector, working in the cities of Upland, Redondo Beach, Arroyo Grande, Duarte, and now here in Solvang. She earned her Certified Municipal Clerk's designation, CMC, in 2018. Her positions, in addition to the city clerk, included working in community development, planning and building as a counter technician, agenda management, records management, public records request administration, contract management, and city clerk consulting services. On a personal note, she volunteers with multiple nonprofits in their silent auction fundraising efforts, primarily with animals, the military, and religious organizations. She has 3 adult children and a variety of critters, all who are in Southern California. Anna Marie is extremely passionate about the city clerk profession and is thrilled to have been offered the opportunity to join the City of Solvang's team as our new city clerk. So welcome, Anna Marie.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yep, we are glad to have you here. Thank you.
Just speak louder.
That's it. Don't be shy.
First direction.
Don't be shy.
Okay, so I would like to give you a brief city manager report today, just to keep everybody updated on where we are and where we're going with some of the major projects that we are working on at the city. During the last council meetings, joined with the planning commission, you did approve the 10 guiding principles that you adopted that will guide us through the rest of the general plan development. The next steps in the general plan development will be beginning the initial evaluation of the alternatives. We have a GPAC meeting scheduled at the end of September to really dive into those issues. The GPAC is your advisory, or is an advisory committee to this process, who will be taking a first look in detail at proposed alternatives. Then the consultant will begin the preparation of an alternatives report, which will be presented to the community at the workshop number 3 on alternatives, which is tentative scheduled for November 4th, 2021. Selection of preferred alternatives will then take place in early calendar year of 2022. So this is a major milestone. We're definitely looking forward to it. We've been engaging over the last 6+ months with the community, receiving various points of data. Very glad to have the 10 guiding principles that will be very essential to us in development of the all of the elements of the general plan. So look forward to the community's discussion on November 4th at the workshop number 3, and also at all of the GPAC's input that we will receive prior to that. On communications, you have your next edition for the fall season of the quarterly newsletter going out to the community at the end of this month with the utility bills. And we also have, we will also be outreaching very much with a targeted outreach to our community to really spread the word about the declaration of the City of Solvang on the Drought 2 stage and the mandatory conservation requirements on that. Tourism Advisory Committee has been seated. They held their first meeting on September 9th, just last week. The members are Tracy Beard, Alexander Grenier, Max Hinder, Kim Jensen, John Martino, Barry Prescott, and Sherry Schallenberger. Their next meeting is scheduled to be for the end of September, when they will really dive into the marketing strategy and development of the next RFP for a marketing contract, which is expiring on December 31st. But they did provide with different advice and comments on the proposed Yule Fest program, which will be introduced to you later this evening. Design Review Committee is meeting later this week. Just a couple of notable projects that they are reviewing as a preliminary review, which will require Plan Commission review afterwards and may require some of the council actions, are a project for 11 short-term rental cottages that is proposed by the CMAS, the same owners as Landsby, to where they would like to create short-term cottages with a pool for the use of their guests as well as guests that would stay at this facility. There's also a proposal right next to the Atterdeck Square to create a space for a bocce ball court and a wine tasting. So these two projects will be reviewed in concept by the DRC, but there are certain requirements for parking, etc., that might come to council consideration at future meetings. We are continuing to enforce the sign ordinance enforcement. That is something that your council voted to lift some of the restrictions that existed during COVID-19, so we are focusing on the downtown area. I do plan on bringing this forward to the DRC for further comment and advice in terms of our sign enforcement and then reporting back to council on our efforts with that. Now a little shout out to recreation. We have an event scheduled, the Solvang Skate Jam contest for September 25th, and the Haunted House is also back. So we have our Parks and Recreation, or our Recreation division, working on the Haunted House. The Theater Fest is closed at this point. There was a break-in ceremony this morning, actually, to where construction is kicking off. So the Theater Fest, where the Haunted House is usually held, is not going to be available, but staff has been creative in having a solution for this, to have a Haunted House that will be a little bit smaller behind the annex building this year. We have a few staff promotions that were caused by the budget adoption and the reorganization of our organizational chart. So we have a few employees who have been appointed to new positions. One was Jenny McClurk, who is now our recreation supervisor. Andrew Gwynn has been appointed to the lead water operation, and Debbie Curtis is transitioning into the accounting technician position. Just once again reminding that we have a few recruitments going on. We have the plane manager, human resources manager, and recreation coordinator, associate engineer are all open. And we are also working on reorganization of the public works department, with public works and utility director position which will be open for recruitment. Anna Marie is here with us for the city clerk, and we also have assistant planner coming on board at the end of September, and plan on having the annex across the street here where the planning and building is located reopened to the public again, so that it won't be just by appointment only again. Advanced calendar in September and October. Some of the notable items that will be coming to council are the marketing RFP, sign ordinance management, parking improvements, fiscal year 21-22 quarter 1 financial report, wastewater treatment plant phase 3 recycled water, and government logo considerations, which will be discussed at the DRC meeting first, and then will be returned to the city council. And that concludes my report.
All right, are there any questions of the staff report? Seeing none. Move on to item number 3.
Council comments, requests, and
comments,
advance
no.
calendar. Comments and
Councilmember.
requests from the city council members. No action will be taken at this meeting.
Councilmember Infante.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick comment about the fact that the groundwater sustainability plan is open for public comment. Okay, this is the plan that's out there that is going to establish how we're going to try and make sure that we have enough water to survive for a while. It's currently an estimate of 1,830 acre-feet a year as an average deficit in the eastern management area of the groundwater sustainability plan that we're dealing with. Usage by Solvang and a few of the domestic wells in the area is an average of about 2,100 acre-feet a year, or about 14% of the total EMA usage. What's happening here is that agriculture uses most of the water, we understand that. About 78% is the calculation. The EMA groundwater it is going to have a lot to do with what happens in the future. It's very important that the GSA receive the input from the residential stakeholders on this. The comment period ends October 24th. You can make comments at the website, which is santainezwater.org. I highly recommend you take a look at this, comment on it if you have it. It's huge. I got to tell you right now, it's 630 something pages, I think. But it literally lays out what the penalties are if we get too low in the water, what happens, who's going to be held responsible, what are all the different options. So please take a chance, take some time and take a look at that if you would. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments at this time? Go ahead, Councilmember Clark.
I wasn't planning on it, but regarding the TAC, the Tourism Advisory Committee, and the staff, the appointees, I wasn't responsible for appointing a 16-year-old to that, but I did say at the very beginning, I would like somebody who has nothing to do with the TRC as a voice on that committee. So I think that might be part of what maybe some of the thinking was, because we have some extremely qualified people, and it's a shame we couldn't have more, but I prefer, I would have liked to have had just a resident. I wasn't thinking about a 16-year-old at the time, but a resident who had nothing to do with the TRC, but the things that happen in the TRC affect residents that aren't in the TRC. So I thought it'd be nice to have that voice, so maybe that's part of the thinking. Secondly and last, we lost a wonderful, wonderful person on Friday night, Petty Fowl. I don't know if you remember her. She was my son, who's in college now, his first grade teacher. If you don't remember her face, you probably remember her dressed up in her Danish outfit doing the Lego tent at Danish Days for I don't know how many years. I've only been here 17 years, and she's been in that tent doing the Legos, working with the kids every single Danish Days. Of course, we missed it. She fought an extremely courageous battle with cancer, and she lost it Friday night. And if we could just please all keep her, to the citizens of Solvang, think about her and keep her in your prayers and think good thoughts. And she was a blessing to this town. Thank you.
Very minor thing, I could probably do it on the phone rather than do it here, but going over the expense report, one thing that stuck out to me and I didn't understand on page 7 is Platinum Plus for business for $7,400. Can you tell me what that is?
On
Page
page 7, 745314, is that the one?
$7,453, right?
Yeah, that's a credit card bill. So the city has credit cards which are used by a number of staff under their spending authority per purchasing policy. All of those receipts are turned into our accounting department, which then pays for the credit card as one invoice.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm thinking Platinum Plus for that form or something.
Only to Jim.
All right, and I'll just finalize. I'd like to also talk about what Councilmember Clark had mentioned about Petty Fowl. I know I had 3 kids that went through Solvang School, and I believe she was a teacher to at least 2 of the 3, and very well loved at Solvang School and in the community, and I know she will be missed. And if you can all just keep her family in your thoughts and prayers, that would be much appreciated. Did want to update, just real quick, coming this Wednesday, we're gonna have the Solvang Library's new virtual book club will be opening up. So just wanted to mention that too. It's open to kids ages 9 through 12 in the San Ynez Valley. And we'll meet 2 Wednesday afternoons per month at 4 p.m. First meeting is this Wednesday, and the following will be on September 29th. And the goal is to have fun exploring new books, new ideas, and different perspectives. So that's just one of the programs that is offered at the library right now for children. And then updating on the food bank. On August 21st, there were 282 households served, 1,083 individuals, 56 for the first time, and that was August 24th. August 31st, there were 227 households, a total of 925 individuals. First-time recipients were 54. And last Tuesday, there were 220 households, a total of 857. So while most of us have been able to continue to move on through COVID and everything, there are still a significant amount of folks in our community that have food insecurities, and we are very grateful for the food bank and for Bethania particularly for stepping up and taking care of those. So thank you all. I did have a couple of meetings that I attended. Actually, one meeting in particular was the SBCAG meeting. We requested the an easy bike project pop-up, which will be coming on, I believe it's this Saturday, the September 18th. It will be behind the Cork, and it's basically where anybody can try out for free an extended amount of time on an electric bicycle. I think there's 15 different varieties to try out, and it's basically just to try to give everyone an opportunity without any type of purchase obligations, or just an opportunity to be able to try something out that is actually great for your health and significant for your environment, our environment here in Solvang. I had a meeting also on Thursday with Congressman Carbajal, and he was talking about some of the items that are coming up, one of which will be a $3.5 trillion federal budget reconciliation bill that will be coming starting fiscal year 2022. And a lot of that, there are a number of programs that are in that will be, hopefully, we'll be able to utilize here in Solvang to help with our infrastructure and broadband moving forward. I think that was about all that I had, and I think that's it.
Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is designed for routine administrative city matters and is approved by roll call vote with one motion. First on the agenda, approval of agenda as presented. Approve warrants, accounts payable and receivables for August 2021. Approve minutes of the special joint and regular meeting of August 23rd, 2021. Approve and adopt the resolution to accept the State of Good Repair Program fiscal year 21-22 Farebox funding. Approve the project list and authorize the city manager to apply for and accept State of Good Repair Program funds and execute any necessary funding and contractual documents.
Any council members have any items that they have any questions on or would wish to pull at this time? And I keep forgetting Claudia out there. Do you have any items at this time? No? You're on mute.
Not at this time.
Not at this time, okay. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second. Okay, sorry. But I was waiting for you to pull something.
All right. Councilmember Clark would be the second on that one, I think.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Infante.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes. Now moving on to item number 5.
Continued public hearings. This is a resolution adopting the updated general fund user and regulatory fees. The staff recommends that the city council hold a public hearing continued from August 9th, 2021, and adopt the proposed resolution with updated fees to be effective November 15, 2021.
Council, you received a rather lengthy presentation in fair detail on this item on August 9th, at which point this item was continued. Here today we have consultant with us available if you have any questions. We have made some clarifications to the document, some additional notes per your prior comments, and the document has been available for public review this whole entire time. And we are asking that you consider adopting the resolution today, which would place these new fees in effect 60 days from the date of adoption, and will raise significantly the revenue for us by recouping the costs that we are otherwise spending from taxpayer dollars within the general fund operations, and would help us by approximately $300,000 a year in additional revenue that we have not been recouping because the fees have not been updated since 2005. So this is definitely recommended to you. If you have any additional questions, myself and the consultant are here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions further from the council?
No questions?
All right. Seeing none up here, is there any comments from the public that are in-house? In the audience?
I have one question.
I'm sorry?
On page 67, on the user and regulation fees, where it's an appeal to city council, an appeal to city council costs $1,500. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, Councilmember Thomas, you're reading that correctly.
Isn't that why we're here? So people can come and appeal?
It is standard to have for certain issues an appeal fee, so there is different procedures, and city attorney can discuss it further.
There's a significant amount of staff work and time that goes into appeals that come to the city council, not the least of which is legal review to make sure that the legal ramifications have been addressed in any staff reports. So it's not simply that the appeal gets filed and it comes to the city council. We make a professional recommendation whether to sustain the appeal, overturn the appeal, and provide the backup and the documentation on why the appeal should either be sustained or otherwise. So it's obviously it's an estimate of the time and energy that will go into it, but I would say in my experience with other cities, that amount is not unusual for an appeal of that type to the
Thank
city
you for the
council.
clarification, Council.
All right, any other questions in the audience? Seeing none, any out on Zoom? Seeing none, bring it back to the council for a motion.
I could like to just add one thing, is that Solvang hasn't raised any of these rates since 2005. We were at the 12 to 15%, if I'm not mistaken, for what we recovered at that time. We compared ourselves to several different cities, and we, even with these increases, we are still below the rest of the cities in this county for the actual cost of covering whatever specific actions the residents want or whatever. So we didn't go extremely high, and I think that's reasonable to not have something updated for 16 years. We kept it as lean as could be.
Thank you for those comments.
That's an issue in itself, so.
But then the next question then becomes, if you look at some of these fees that are going to jump a lot, should they happen all at once? Should we split it out over 2 years? If you take a look at just Betts Hall or the park and the fees that people will have to pay to use those facilities, they go from what I would call very moderate to up there a ways. And so I don't disagree that we need to recover a lot of our costs. This will do a lot for us. and to go through individually and say this one doesn't, that's what I choked on 2 meetings ago, is why I objected to this immediately until I had the time to spend on it.
Mhm.
And I've looked through it a lot, and I think we need to do it. So the only question I have for you is, do we do it all at once, or do we do it, say, spread across 2 years?
I appreciate that too, and also though, and with, one of the reasons we extended this is because to give the public more time to comment on it, and
And nobody's commented,
we're not getting any pushback, if you will.
so maybe.
I would like to just get it over with.
And council, to respond to some of the Councilmember Infante's comments, some of the rates were raised a little bit more aggressively, for example, on building and planning side. A lot of their other rates, such as parks and other recreation and whatnot, are being phased in, and we're really taking kind of baby steps so that we can start to catch up over time to closer or higher levels of recovery. And obviously with recreation and parks, those fees are being kept very low. We're definitely not shooting anywhere even close to 50% recovery, even with these increases.
I also seem to remember that parks and the facilities for the parks and things like that actually had been updated
Parks,
prior.
the
I
only
think it
one
about
that was.
5 or 6 years ago, as opposed to 2005.
You're correct.
So, anyway, is there a motion?
In that case, I'll move that we accept the updated general fund user and regulatory fees.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Aruna,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yuri.
Yes. Moving on to public hearings, item number 6.
Public hearing to consider electric trolley license application. Staff recommends that council hold a public hearing per municipal code Title 4, Chapter 12 to consider electric trolley license application from Horace Entertainment LLC. Due to continued review of the application, staff recommends continuing the public hearing to September 27th, regular city council meeting.
By way of just a little bit of background, if you would remember that this was a new ordinance, a new chapter to the municipal code that was recently added regulating electric trolleys. This is the first application that the city has ever received. It was noticed for today, so the recommendation, because we are still in the process of review of the application with public safety and CHP to ensure that the vehicles are fully in compliance, as well as reviewing the routes. So we're still working with the applicant. I expect that we probably will be able to have this completed and in front of you for the September 27th regular council meeting. So the recommendation tonight is just to continue the public hearing so that the notices are all already in place and it doesn't need to be renoticed, and you will hear this again on September 27th.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Correct, yes.
Can we get a motion to continue this to,
Yeah, I make a
Are we
recommendation.
taking public comment on it? I apologize. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
we are gonna take public comment on it, or we're gonna bring it back
You
on the
can open.
27th to, once we actually finalize?
The recommendation is to continue to the 27th, but if there are members of the public who wish to speak on it at this point, they certainly could do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilman.
And you've got somebody next that wants to speak.
We'll start, we don't have any written requests, so the first hand I saw was in the back. Is that Ms. Sony?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
There's only one thing that I'd like to mention on that. I think it's very pertinent that we do have electric trolleys or some type of transportation and moving forward. My only concern would be is that if this is one trolley, or are there other applications that for electric vehicles that we might consider? I know we had spoken, and I remember Mr. Clark or Councilman Clark might have heard this comment. When we talked about having transportation and having trolleys, there seemed to be a size problem versus some smaller entities where we were looking at multiple transportation that could go from location to location businesses and could let people off, whether they had tickets or not, in stations. That would be my thought, not whether we license an electric trolley or a smaller entity. What I would like to see as a merchant would be to have accessibility of a transportation system, whether it was in Veterans Hall or wherever out, that the people that were parking could feel that they had the utilization of something favorable to them. And that would be what I would like to say bringing forward. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Sir?
Benny Casco, Solvang business owner, dear Mayor, City Council. I have some questions about the trolley there, which nobody seems to be able to answer within the city. I'd like to point out that my questions are not in relation to the original Danish trolley, but rather pertaining to the limited liability company called Horseys Entertainment LLC. That is the applicant on tonight's agenda. 1. Does Horseys Entertainment LLC provide parking spaces for its business or pay $12,376 in lieu of parking as stipulated in tonight's agenda package on page 66, which you, I think, just approved, like any other business? And how is that calculated? 2. Does Horseys Entertainment LLC pay a fee for the public parking spaces it occupies for pickup and use for parking? And how much, and how is that calculated? 3. Does the exterior look of all Horseys Entertainment LLC vehicles go through a DRC approval process like any other business exterior? 4. Does all exterior advertising on Horseys Entertainment LLC vehicles go through a DRC approval process? I don't think any other business is allowed to turn our buildings or vehicles into mobile advertising billboards. I know some of us get fined. I have nothing against the original Danish trolley. It's historic, it's cultural, and it's popular. But we're no longer talking about just the original Danish trolley. We're talking about a fleet of vehicles owned by Horseys Entertainment LLC, which itself calls it a fleet on page 221. A fleet which is asking for permission to operate up to 4 slow-moving vehicles, 12 hours a day, 365 days a year within the TRC on page 222. A fleet that specifically needs route on public streets to drive on and public parking spaces to pick up from in Solvang. A fleet that is directly struggling with the closure of Copenhagen Drive. Councilmember Infanto reinforced it at the last meeting, and a Horsey Entertainment LLC employee previously in the public comments. The fleet has problems operating through the alley because of the closure of Copenhagen Drive. The closure is specifically and directly affecting the business, its business. A fleet which is owned by Horseys Entertainment LLC, of which Mayor Pro Tem is the managing member and has listed it on Form 700 having a fair market value between $100,000 to $1 million, and from which she gets income between $10,000 and $100,000 a year. If you can answer yes to all these 4 questions, that means that Horseys Entertainment LLC is subject to the same rules as the rest of us when it comes to parking and DRC. I also think that some of us would like to be ensured that there are no conflicts of interest in the room when parking, traffic, and Copenhagen closure is discussed. Thank you. Oh, I have a 5th question. Does Horseys Entertainment LLC have a city-granted monopoly for operating motorized and horse-drawn bus services within the TRC? Thank you.
Thank you. Got down those questions?
I have all those questions, Mayor.
There you go. Thank you. We'll make sure we have some of those addressed at the actual next public hearing on it. Do we have any other public comment? Those are the only 2 that I saw initially in-house. And there doesn't appear to be any out in Zoom. We'll bring it back and just move on to the second, next item, 7.
We'll still need to get direction from the council
Oh,
to move it to the
sorry.
September 27th meeting.
Is there a motion to continue to the September 27th meeting?
I'll make a motion to continue item 7 on the, item 6 on the council agenda this evening to September 27th.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Morona,
Abstain.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes?
Mayor Yurick.
Yes. All right, moving on to regular business agenda. Item number 7, please.
Review proposals for the Visitor Center Management and approved contract. Staff recommends that you review the proposal for the Visitor Center Management and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with selected vendor. The recommended contract term is October 31, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Thank you.
Is there a staff report?
I have a brief staff report. As you would recall, the current visitor center contract is expiring at the end of September. Per your prior direction, we had issued a request for proposals for the visitor center management contract, which is attached as attachment A for your review. We received a total of 3 applications, which are also attached to this report. One is from the Central Coast Marketing, who are the current operator of the visitor center under contract that's expiring. The second one is from the Chamber of Commerce, and then we also have a proposal from IDK. Staff has done some preliminary review of these applications. All of the applicants are qualified for administering the services. There is a summary on page 229 for you that just kind of summarizes the proposed number of hours and the costs per hour for those operations, as well as total costs as proposed. So staff recommends selecting one of these applicants, as we are currently in the middle of September and this contract is expiring, so the contract will need to be extended, or new contract would need to be formed.
So are there any questions of the staff report?
I believe we have all of the applicants are here with us, if you would like them to give you a brief presentation of their proposals.
I think that would be probably the most feasible thing to do. So we'll just start in the order. We'll start off with Brenda, Central Coast Marketing. Do we need a time limit on this part, or is this where?
It's up to you,
Just be a
Mayor, to-
presentation.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you need, Brenda?
I think I can do it in 3 to 5 minutes.
Let's go, let's do 5.
Thank you, Mayor Yurick and council members. It's an honor to speak to you this evening. It has also been an honor for myself and my family to operate the Solvang Visitor Center since September of 2019. As you know, I was involved in the destination marketing organization in Solvang since 2006. I lost my job when that was defunded on July 31st of 2019. At the end of August, the city called me and asked me if I would step in and operate the visitor center. I was absolutely stunned. So I said, let me think about it. I asked my husband and he said, I think that'll be a great family project. I think we'll have fun with it and let's go for it. So we stepped in, and initially it was going to be for 1 week while they figured out what to do with the visitor center. But we jumped in with our whole heart, and we started with a visitor center that had absolutely nothing in it except walls. Even the telephones had been removed. So we limped along and decorated and put our whole heart into it as best we could. And at the end of the week, they offered me to come with a proposal. I did have a proposal, and when I took it to my lawyer for review, he told me that the price was not high enough. I hadn't considered what happens when minimum wage goes up. How are you going to cover sick leave and some additional things? However, I went ahead with the price until the 1st of November when I requested an increase. And I again created a proposal and I was given that increase. So to make a long story short, This is now my 6th time to present a proposal to you. And I would just like to stand on my record and say we've done an awesome job. We've done our very best. We put our whole heart into it. I do use Elverhoy Museum. We've gone on 3 tours of that. Esther's given us one of the walkthroughs, extensive history training. And the last one we did a couple months ago with Linda Palmer. And again, she went through the whole intensive history training. We also use Esther's book, The Spirit of Solvang, for references for history. And polyhistory and culture are super important to Solvang. Our main purpose of the Visitor Center is to get people to return and to stay longer when they're here. We always keep that uppermost in mind. Our job is to share, without partiality, all of the businesses in Solvang, because we want people to know all the wonderful things that are here. The attractions, the shops, the museums, things to do, things to taste, things to eat. I do create a dining guide, which I do hand deliver around to all the hotels on a quarterly basis. And aside, I would also like to request that I could put that, a large format of that in the Centennial Plaza, because there is a bulletin board there that's vacant, and I think that would be a very helpful piece of information to have there, along with a monthly calendar. I'd be glad to provide those to you. As far as Danish costumes, as I put in my proposal, the Danish folk costumes were mostly worn from the 1750s to the early 1900s, and they were mostly homemade. So our costumes are homemade. They are made by myself. We all have a costume. I'd like to eventually create a second costume for everybody, because it's a little difficult to wear my costume all week. However, Elness no longer makes costumes for the staff, for what we needed, and the European uniform place is no longer in business either, so that also encouraged me to make the uniforms. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I just would like to thank Solvang for giving me the opportunity. We've so enjoyed it, and we would like to continue. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Is there any questions of Brenda?
No, thank you, Brenda.
All right, thank you so much, Brenda, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just go down in order, the chamber, Solvang Chamber.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, council members, and council on the Zoom. We do feel our plan stands on its own as an economic driver and for an economic development program for this community. We do truly feel that we need a Solvang After Dark program. We do need the visitor center must stay open later hours to support the downtown and to support the hotels. And we want a long-term future for this project. So we would like to, have this available, and we're happy to be part of Solvang at any level that the council sees fit to use. And I think our proposal fit in that we understood that we had to have insurance all the way around, and we had to have employees that were under what we want to call the normal payroll system. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Are there any questions? No? Okay. I'm assuming Scott, IDK? Or Susan?
Lady and gentlemen of the council, thanks for having us. Scott Shoemake, managing member of IDK Events. I want to start by thanking Brenda and her family for doing a fantastic job of running the visitor center over the last few months, or almost over a year now, I guess. As you know, I think I've said to all of you multiple times, I have no desire to run your visitor center, but as your tourism marketing coordinator, we hired an account coordinator a few months ago who has some experience running your visitor center, and she came to us and said, look, I think we can do a really good job at this. We already have the infrastructure in place from a business standpoint. We have obviously accounting staff, payroll staff, an ungodly amount of insurance for the work that we have to do, and a very willing employee who would like to tell you a little bit about her experience running the visitor center and what she believes that she and some of our other employees can bring to your visitor center in Solvang. That being said, as your marketing coordinator, I'm very excited to work with whoever is in that visitor center. I personally believe that the visitor center is a very important tool in the overall marketing mix. I think that, you know, digital is incredibly important. I do disagree in a couple that I don't think our visitor center here in Solvang needs a big digital presence. I think that people who come to the visitor center here are looking for an escape from that. And I think an investment in digital doesn't make a lot of sense since we all carry our computers with us nowadays. So that those will get replaced constantly where whatever we put in the visitor center will. So I think the key deliverable in the visitor center and in the RFP is people. And so I will let Sue tell us what she proposes to do with the visitor center.
Mayor Urick and council members, before I start, I wanted to just tell Councilmember Clark, thank you for informing us about petty foul. I've actually been sitting back there trying to not get too emotional, thinking about, I did not know that. She was one of my teachers, love her so much. And I feel so blessed because I had the opportunity a couple years ago to take a few computer classes through Hancock. Every class I walked into, petty foul was already sitting in there. So I always tried to sit by her. I couldn't cheat off her because she always had some crazy art project going instead of what we were working on. But I loved our conversations, and I just want to say that she will be very missed, and that she was absolutely adored, fabulous, fabulous person. Our family just loved her so much. So I will try to compose myself, but thank you for informing us of that. My name is Susan Lee. I am a ClickGuard, and I did recently join Scott's marketing team. I'm really excited about it. He's been really great to listen to a local's input, which I've had a lot of things to say about some things that they're doing. I wanted to mention really quickly that I had the opportunity to go over and assist a little bit with the filming of the video productions they've been working on. And it was so much fun and so amazing. We came in, brought my dad with the accordion, and Scott comes running over to me. When we got my dad, he's going to be in maybe, unless he ends up on the cutting room floor. But he's playing the accordion, and he gets in. Scott says, "Come over here, Sue, come over. You got to see this shot, how beautiful your town looks in the monitor." And you know, I come over and I'm looking at it like, oh, well, it's my dad sitting there playing the accordion, what's new? And it was nothing to me, but they were so excited about it. And Scott said, "Look at this view though, in this shot." He's like, your town looks like, Solvang looks like a new world. And I sat there looking at the monitor and I thought, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. He's so right. So I learned something that day. I came home and had a discussion with my dad about, I think there's something really important, and it was eye-opening to me to have fresh eyes here too. So I think the combination of the both, having the local voice here and Scott's team, their production, their professionals, it's really makes for a perfect combination of what we need. Like we see the original viewpoints and the new eyes, new fresh eyes, and I found that to be very eye-opening. The cameraman even said when my dad came on, he was like, oh my gosh, he started playing and the energy just grew when he came in, and it was just special. And so, you know, it was a really interesting and enlightening moment. I also noticed that in the agenda, it did kind of mention that we didn't have maybe as much experience. So I brought in something, it's very small, and you probably can't see from there, but there's these little Abelskiver pans on this that says Danish Days 1973-74. I have my Abelskiver pan necklace on. And my dad actually gave those out when he was the co-chairman of Danish Days, and then the next year the chairman. They're very rare commodity, but we've been doing Danish Days events and worked in the visitor center. I worked in there for a couple of years, worked in the Bureau's office, the SCVB office. My dad ran the visitor center for, we can't remember, it was 12 or 13 years, but so I think that sort of covers the experience. My mom wanted me to bring this huge binder full of years of memorability, but I thought I'd just sort of spare you that. She would still like you to all look at it, but you can choose if you want to do that. And also you might have noticed that our proposal was very streamlined. And Scott and I talked about this, and this was actually done on purpose because we both agreed that...
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. That we have the same vision for the visitor center, which was not to be a big showy place. It's still the place where people come to make connections. And of course, you know, the digital is really important, modern, moving forward, and using all the technology we can to further Solvang's marketing. But the most important thing I think about the visitor center itself is making human connections. And so between, like I said, with what Scott's knowledge is and our ability, which is, I believe, to make those connections, I think it's a perfect combination. So we're the old world charm, and he brings in all the modern marketing experience and knowledge. I wanted to share just a really short experience and that I had in the visitor center one time, and I think this shows how important having that personal connection is. And I'll make it as short as possible. It was a really moving experience. I was working in there, and it was real busy, but this lady and her, looked like her son came in, had a hood put over his head. You couldn't see his face. And they were just hovering in the back, and they wouldn't come up and talk to me, and I had people coming and going. And I finally made it a point to really quickly, like, encourage them to come talk to me. And they didn't really want to at first, but as they came up to me, I was asking them, what are you here for? What can I do for you? Have you been, and it wasn't, I said, have you been here before? Yeah, we've been here a lot of times. And the son got real emotional, and he said, we actually used to come here all the time to Solvang with our dad. But he passed away, and we haven't been able to be back for a very long time. And he said, but it's his birthday. So we came, and we went to the book loft, because that was my dad's favorite spot. And we went and sat on the stairs. Actually, the wooden stairs were his favorite spot in Solvang. And they said, we just felt like he was, I know it's going to sound weird, but we felt like his presence was there with us. And I listened to them, and I said, tell me more about your dad. Talk to me more about this. And so they did. I sat there with them. It turned out to be perfect timing. My coworker came in. She started helping other people. I stayed with them and talked to them for a long time about his dad. And by the time he was done, his hood was down, and he was totally open to the conversation being there. And they didn't understand why I connected with them so well, but I told them eventually that I was a widow as well, And my son was about the same age as this young man when his dad died. So I was willing to listen to them and connect with them. And it was this amazing moment that we just felt so connected. And they told me they had never come in the visitor center before. And they didn't know why they even were there until I started to talk to them and listen to them and made that connection. And before they left, they were leaning over the counter and giving me a hug, and we were all in tears. But it was this special moment where I knew that I was in the right place and they were in the right place. And it was because I don't see that as a job. It's not just a job. It's a place, Solvang is a place that we love, that we have a passion for. I live just down the street. I love sharing it with our locals and our visitors. And I'm really excited at the idea of being able to do that again. I also wanted to share, my dad, Dean Clifford, he's here. Y'all probably know him. And he's really excited about the idea of being able to work in the visitor center again. I even have seen him come into the visitor center while he's working and seen him talking and speaking in Danish to the visitors. And he's so happy, and these Danes walked out and he looked at me after he finished talking to them. He said, "Can you believe I actually get paid to do this?" So I feel like he's the perfect person to be in the visitor center as well. I've actually also seen him on a regular day in Solvang. We're driving through town, puts down his window because the trolley's coming up the street. It was the horse-drawn trolley. And he takes off his fisherman's cap, his Danish fisherman caps, starts waving out the window, saying, "Hi, trolley people! Hi, trolley people!" And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen, but the trolley people are like, "Hi," but that was just a regular day. And so we love our town and love to share it all the time. And sometimes in Solvang, so he has his Danish cap on, we refer to our Danish attire as costumes, but the Danes refer to them as their traditional Danish folk dress. So in either case, we don't need to get new costumes. We don't need to be fitted for them because we have already been wearing them all our lives. And that's just part of who we are. And thank you very much. I don't know, I was going to introduce my dad, but he can just wave to y'all. But thank you for your time and your consideration. And we really appreciate all the good work that you all are doing too. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Further in, take public comment, or you want to discuss up here?
That's just, we haven't got public comment yet. We only have 3.
That was it.
Yeah. So we have on.
Public comment?
Public comment, that's what I was going to do.
Public comment. Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Sonny.
I make a motion, we have public comment.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jennifer Stoney. With the that was brief. Okay, with the 17 years that I've been here, starting in 2004, before I ever moved into my space, I was fortunate enough to work with the Visitor Center and the ladies and the gracious staff that represented Solvang. What I can say to you of your 3 candidates emphatically, you have 2 candidates that I support wholeheartedly. One I do not. The first one I do not support because it's been nothing but negativity since they began in taking away the Solvang Visitor Center, and all the direct contact that we had as business was IDK. I cannot support them. Between Taste of Solvang and a lot of activities that we had, I've lost significant amount of money. Granted, I realize that COVID-19 came along, but along with being able to contact someone that was in San Francisco versus someone down the street that happened to be part of our community, that did not happen. These two ladies, Tracy Beard has spent nearly 24/7 hours of the day supporting all of our businesses, our needs, that one reason or another that I'm standing here today along with your gracious presence is because of that. She knows the community and she has our backs 100%, not for some other reason. The other lady, whether you choose which one, is Brenda Ball. I've worked with her, and between what was online of promoting all my activities instead of going and spending X amount of dollars with advertising, she worked with me and made sure all my events were posted. You have a tremendous amount of talent between Tracy Beard, who's sitting over here, and Brenda Ball. And I can't say enough praise for those people, other than gentlemen and ladies. I leave it in your hands as someone that's had direct experience with two of the finest women and her organization that you have at your fingertips. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, are there any out in Zoom or on the phone? Raise your hand. Or not?
See none?
All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back for discussion. Final recommendation.
It seems to me a couple of things. One with the click guards, I think the local presence is obvious. And it's a great local presence, by the way. The IDK proposal is also the lowest cost of the three. I know there's been some issues, but with connections because they didn't have a local presence, but now with the click guard in place, that shouldn't be an issue any longer. And I think they deserve a strong consideration.
I'll comment. This is one of the things that I absolutely don't like about being a city council person, is having to make decisions like this, because all of these groups could effectively and passionately run the visitor center and represent Solvang in a wonderful, wonderful way. Being the way that I am, I look at a lot of things as bottom line, and I look at a lot of things with the dollars, and I would be leaning towards IDK as well. This is kind of it's not an anecdote, but when Scott first approached the council about running events for Solvang during the previous council, I'm looking at where everybody's from. I'm like, San Francisco? Okay, we'll cross him off. And I was so floored by his presentation, and I'm very pleased with what he's done. The fact that he's paired himself with some wonderful, wonderful people, I think is the best of both worlds. But it's just so hard because all three groups could do an outstanding job, and Brenda has done such an outstanding job getting us through where we've been for the last 18 months, or last year. It's just awful. And then I go back to my conservative side, I'm like, I like $99,000 and a good team to do it, so that would be my vote.
They're all three good, but Perry has agreed with a lot of what he said, but by the same token, it's been operated. When I first started getting involved in city issues, Brenda's one of the people I went and talked to and spent time there, and have done that for some time. And I know there's a difference in cost, but when you look at it annually, it's not something that's gonna break the bank on us, on this particular issue. And I'm not sure at this point that they've done something wrong to take away the job that they've been doing. And that's kind of where I come from.
That's great points.
I had a question, just real quick for Scott, mainly for the hours of operation. And I know that Brenda and the chamber had the same hours of operation, 10 a.m. to 6. And I'm just kind of curious why you were at 9:30 to 5:30 as opposed to
That was,
up here.
okay. So, to be honest, my dad and I talked about it, and he was the manager, like I said, in the visitor center for 12 or 13 years, and we talked about times and what worked best. And we felt like in the evening, after 5, you really just sometimes just sit there with no one. In the morning, people come in, but usually not till about 10, because that's when the shop's open. But you do have some that are coming in. We used to be open 9 to 5, so we kind of just broke in the middle. But of course, obviously, we would be willing to do whatever the council's recommendation would be.
Okay, thank you. Claudia, do you have any thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you to all of the applicants. They have done an outstanding job supporting our city. And it's very tough to come down here and make a decision. But I will make one point that, Brenda stepped up when the city asked her once that the visitor center closed because the visitor bureau was no longer serving Solvang. But back to that point, prior to that, Mr. Clickard and everybody else at the visitor center, they did an outstanding job staffing it, not only being knowledgeable about the businesses that are operating, but also the history of the town. And they were left out of a job from one day to the other through no fault of their own. So I also think that, they deserve a chance to serve Solvang again in a way that they're passionate about. And I would love to, make amends about a horrible situation that they dealt with, that they had no say on. I would love to make that right as well.
All right, thank you. And I guess I haven't made my comments yet, so I'll just go right in. I wanted to thank all three of the proposers for the time and energy that you all have spent in putting this together. And I know the chamber and Brenda have spent countless times, because this isn't, as Brenda mentioned, the first time that this has come up. And I know I had been a proponent where trying to consolidate costs and some things with having the chamber be the one being that right now Solvang is the only one that's different. But I also know the history that the click cards had, and that was one of the key elements that I had asked for, if there was a way to get them back, because I felt that from all of the years that I had been working downtown prior to the dissolution of the SCVB, that they were doing everything that was asked of them. And we come back full circle, and we're now having our quote unquote SCVB tourists being a part of. If you can let me make my comments.
Yes, sir.
We've had public comment already, so let me finish.
Yes, sir.
We're kind of coming back full circle again, where our marketing team will possibly, at least it appears at this point, that it may be taking over the visitor center, which I think is what happened with the SCVB, if I'm not mistaken. So I do like the numbers of IDK, just down nuts and bolts. And I think the hours could be worked. I understand that explanation, and I understand it's because of the years of experience that you guys had prior working there. I haven't really made a decision yet, but just trying to go around it. Brenda, I saw your hand up first. Now, I'm going to give everyone else an opportunity to speak one last time. Make it fast. I'll give it like 1 minute.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. I did fail to mention that I have offered the click guards from the very beginning the opportunity to work in the visitor center, and I offered them more money than they made as the SCVB, because I do pay my staff more than they made at the SCVB. And Mr. Clickguard actually went with me before I accepted the position initially in 2019. He went with me to talk to one of the council members, and he chose not to work at the visitor center. And I've asked Sue and I've asked Kirsten also, and they have not accepted my offers. And there was one more thing, but I'm sorry it's escaped me. So again, thank you, Charlie, for giving me the opportunity.
You're welcome. Tracy, would you like to follow up with anything, or?
I think any one of the three of us would do a great job. I think the chamber brings a little bit more economic development to it on a nighttime basis. And I think our proposal did say till 7 p.m. But at the same time, I will support any decision you make, and I respect all of you up there. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Scott, I'd like to summarize.
Yeah, so I started by saying thank you to Brenda and her family. I agree that Tracy and the chamber would do a great job. At the end of the day, you know, I asked Sue to come to work for us a few months ago. She's been a fabulous account coordinator. We'll have her on our team, you know, long after Solvang. She's been a valuable part of our team on other projects as well. So I'm excited for her to go back and do something that she loves so passionately, and I hope that you give her the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead. Come on up.
I'll be brief. In situations like this, I once had a professional capability, or I was tasked with choosing similar kinds of services from different vendors. And what I came to was, unless one vendor is offering something entirely innovative or new or intriguing or qualitatively different in their service package, that we sort of took the position that if the numbers were reasonably aligned, that we could write our spec based on the proposals we received, and then go to the people who had been doing a good job and give them the opportunity to respond to that spec. In other words, if it ain't broke, then we weren't trying to fix it necessarily, even though we had input from other vendors. So you might consider that as an approach to this.
Thank you. So it may be time for a motion.
I'll move that we accept the IDK proposal.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Infante?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Morona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
No.
Mayor Heurig?
No.
Passes 3-2.
Moving on to item number 8, receive a marketing update from the City of Solvang marketing consultant including Yule Fest proposed.
Actually, I'm sorry, can I interrupt? We have an item, time certain, at 8 o'clock.
Number 9.
So item number 9, if we could move that up on the agenda, Mayor.
What page is it? Make a quick motion.
We have a motion to move item 9 up to number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Fontaine?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Morona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Urick?
Yes.
Item number 9, public hearing to receive input from the community regarding the creation of a district-based election system. Hearing will be heard at 8 p.m. Staff recommends holding the third public hearing to receive input from the community regarding the creation of a district-based election system.
Thank you. We once again have our consultant, Daniel Phillips with NDC with us. He has a little bit of a updated version of the agenda or the PowerPoint, where he's put some additional information on there about different communities. So I'll let him go through that in a second. But just to remind you of why we are here, and that is because on June 22nd, 2020, the City Council adopted Resolution 2011-12 declaring its intention to transition from at-large to district-based elections for the City Council, commencing with the general municipal election November 2022. The districting process requires 4 public hearings. 2 public hearings must be held prior to release of the draft maps. So you've already had 2 of those hearings. Today is an extra one, a third one. The City of Solvang held these hearings, and we have a dedicated website, so we encourage the public to go to www.districtsolvang.org. A link to this website is also available from our city website, and provide their feedback by way of, there's an interactive map that the community can review. We have added some additional information to that map about a week ago or so, to where we've populated it with the 2020 census population. So as you use that interactive map, you can look at different populations, such as we have a fairly significant Hispanic population in the downtown area. You can also take a look at the data by the census block. And what we're really looking for from community input and from the City Council is just your input on what do you consider to be the neighborhoods and the communities of interest that have common interests that should be collected in one district versus splitting those communities into different districts. With that, I'll have Daniel once again walk us through a brief presentation this time, since it's the third time, and maybe just focus a little bit on that slide where you have created some additional layers of information based on the feedback we've already received. Daniel.
Thank you very much. And good to be with you, council members and mayor again. And let me share my screen with you. So tonight I'm coming to you to present a third time. Now, the law only requires 2 public hearings before draft maps are released, but you can have as many as you like. And so we have the first 2 on August 9th and 23rd, and tonight is the third, where we are hoping to solicit input on the neighborhoods and communities of interest in the city that we would want to keep united in the district drawing process. And so we will eventually come out with those draft maps in February, once we have had some time to process the data and get significant public input. Then we'll post those on the website and give the public and the council a full month to consider and think over those draft maps. And then we'll have the first of the post-draft map public hearings on March 7th. And that will be the first occasion to discuss and deliberate over the draft maps, and then there will be another one of those on March 28th, and then there will be an adoption of one of those maps as the final map on April 11th. The criteria for drawing these maps, I've been through this a couple times with you already, so I will only be brief here, but the district should have equal population. They should satisfy the Federal Voting Rights Act by not diluting the voting strength of any racial or ethnic minorities. But on the flip side, not practice racial gerrymandering where you make race or ethnicity the only or main consideration. Then you have these state criteria that are in a rank order. So if you can't satisfy them all, then you privilege the higher ones. The highest of those is the districts are contiguous, one piece each, that they not divide neighborhoods and communities of interest, which are socioeconomic geographic areas that should be kept together. Third, that they follow easily identifiable boundaries. And fourth, that they be compact and not bypass one group of people to get to a more distant group. And then there's this prohibition against favoring or discriminating against a political party. Then you may consider these other traditional principles like continuity in office, so avoiding carrying off incumbents. And then if there's any future population growth expected, you can account for that slightly. So here is a demographic summary. And just the basics here, the population as reported by the census is 6,126. This number may change slightly once we get the official prisoner adjusted data. We expect that on September 20th, so a week from tonight. And then, but I would be shocked if it were very, very different from that number. And so that is the total population, and then you can see the citizen voting age population. So just looking at those who are eligible to vote, the total on that is 400,487. And the racial ethnic breakdown is 73% non-Hispanic white, 23% Hispanic, and smaller percentages of other groups. So if we go by the 2020 census numbers, each of the 4 districts must contain about 1,500 people. And here I provide some population counts for sections of the city, just for reference, and for you to get a sense of what these districts might look like. And so if you were to break the city into 4 quadrants roughly, you have Mission Drive or the 246 as one line through the city and Ollisall Road as the other. You can think of the northwest quadrant as having 2,226, the northeast as having 1,158, the southwest 1,959, and the southeast 411, and then you have the far north 372. So I just provide these numbers to give you a sense of what we're working with here and to illustrate how you can't really divide the city into 4 quadrants. The numbers don't work out well enough to do that. So we're going to have to be a little more creative in how we think about splitting up the city in order to adhere to the equal population guidelines, or rules, I should say. So as a reminder, we have this interactive review map that Ms. Bradford had already mentioned, and it can be found at the link on the website, and you can see examples of data layers that you can find there. I will briefly show a more recent addition to the interactive review map. So if you go there, you'll see that you have the same data layers as before, but you'll see there's a couple new ones. If you click here for census blocks, you'll be able to see the census blocks for the whole city, and you can see how many people live in each census block. So you have 36 people who live here, And you see that this one is quite a large census block, the way the census tends to use streets as their boundaries. And so because of that, you can get some very large census blocks when you have a lot of cul-de-sacs. So this one has 309 people, and this one has 346. But others have much smaller populations, like in the commercial area where there aren't as many people living there. Now, if you want to take a more broader look at things, you can look at census block groups. These are entities that the census comes up with. They group all the blocks into these larger block groups. And so all of them have their own color, and you can see how many people live in each of these census block groups. So you have the red one down here has 191, and the north one has 620. And you can see that there's a lot more people who live in this section of the city, more than would be enough for a city council district, which, as you recall, is about 1,500 people. So, but all the other layers are still there that I've already shown before, like percent CVAP Latino. So the public hearing and discussion tonight, we're hoping to get input on what are the neighborhoods of the city and what are their boundaries. What are the communities of interest in the city and what are their boundaries? And the interactive review map showcases potential neighborhoods and communities of interest. And so we're hoping that tonight the council could discuss and take action on recognizing a list of areas that meet each definition according to state law. You have neighborhoods, which actually aren't defined by state law, but whatever the council decides are worthy of being considered neighborhoods, then you would want to make note of that. And then these are defined communities of interest, areas that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. So here I list off some neighborhoods that have been mentioned at recent public hearings. And what I'm going to do is, as I list them off, their rough spatial location will be shown on the map to the right. And so these are just neighborhoods that have been mentioned. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but it's a starting point, and we can hear from the council and the public what you think of these. But we have Alamo Pintado Village Townhomes in the northeast over here. We have Olisal Glen to the south, Olisal Ranch, which kind of extends off screen. It's that whole long tail that goes way down to the south. Aderdog Village, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing a lot of these Danish names, but you have Aderdog Village, Creekside, Mission Oaks, Nyborg Estates. You have Rancho Santa Ynez Estates, which is a mobile home park to the southwest. Skip Mesa, Viking Hills, the Village Collection. And there may be others that we may not be aware of, so feel free to let us know if there's any we missed. Then when it comes to communities of interest that have been mentioned at recent public hearings, we've heard about multifamily housing in certain areas. We've heard about senior living facilities, mobile home parks, or at least one of those. Areas with traffic problems, potentially. Homeowners associations, which may be several of the neighborhoods I mentioned. And if there are any others you might want to add, please let us know. You might get ideas from the interactive review map. So that is all I have. And so again, I just go back to this slide where we ask if you could give us some guidance as far as approving this list that we came up with or adding to it so that we have a sense of how we should be drawing the district lines and best satisfying and following the state criteria number 2, which says we should not divide neighborhoods and communities of interest. So thank you for your attention and happy to take any questions or input.
Are there any questions?
I have one. Do you have or can you provide an interactive map for the computer where you can define an area and it would automatically give you the population within the area that you just defined?
We have not made that tool available for the city of Solvang, but that is, we do have tools that we like that we've made available for other cities who requested it.
It'd be a lot easier for us, I think, if we could get on our computers and then play with those areas so that we're keeping the neighborhoods together, but still know what the population is within those areas that we define. I'd appreciate that.
Probably cost more.
I don't know.
No?
I have a comment.
Councilmember
It's just
Clark.
coming from, it's, we didn't know we didn't know we were broke, but we've got to fix something. So the state makes mandates that a city of 5,900 or 6,000 residents has to adhere to. And I'm looking at the screen and I'm seeing so many different criteria that I don't know whether you throw a dart or how you do this. Do you separate the town into renters versus homeowners? Do you send it along, like as they point out up here, do you send it along racial lines? Do you send it along, there's just too many variables. I mean, I honestly think you could just throw a dart at this map and fine, there's your districts. And the state makes rules, so we have as a city have to go out and hire consultants and spend them thousands of dollars to show us this stuff. And I was one of the first people to call for district elections. I didn't want the city to get litigated against and lose money. But there's just so many, how do you pick a criteria? And that's a question. How do we pick the criteria? Because they throw 54 different items at you that you've got to separate your town this way, which I think separating a town this small is awful. Because we're all Solvang residents, and I know how the thinking in Sacramento and how that works. And you look at the haves and the have-nots in certain areas, and there's underrepresentations, and that's very, very true, and especially in LA County. But I think this is such a can of worms. Where do we start? And I know that's what you're doing right now, but how do we, with all the different criteria, what's the first one to pick? Geographically, it's not going to work because we've got our residents are too concentrated in certain areas. So do you draw the map like it's a San Francisco district with 54 different neighborhoods in one person's district that have nothing in common other than maybe one or two things? How are we going to do this?
Well, first you make sure you are following the federal laws, so have districts that have equal populations and are not diluting the voting strength of racial or ethnic groups, but not in a way that is considered racial gerrymandering, which is a fine balance, but it can be done. And then once you make sure you're doing that, then you turn to the state criteria, and they have a rank order. So first you make sure you're following 1, then 2, then 3. And so number 1 is that the districts are contiguous, so they're just one piece, which is pretty easy. Just make sure they're not disconnected pieces. Number 2, not divide neighborhoods and communities of interest. And that's one of the main purposes of tonight, is to figure out what those neighborhoods and communities of interest are so that we make sure we're not dividing them.
I thought we were all one community of interest here. I thought we were all Solvang residents.
Oh, silly you.
That's not. I know that's not popular to say these days, and it probably gets me into more trouble than it does. But this is just so nutty.
Have you received any input from the public to date about Solvang?
Good question.
Daniel?
I believe that the contact email goes to you, Ms. Bradford.
It is, yes. I was wondering if we have any activity on the website, but no, we have not.
Okay, so here's the next silly question. What if nobody comes up with any districts in time? Does your, what'd you call him, a demographer, just decide on what that would be and present it to us?
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is we are going to hope to receive public input and we have received a lot of public input already through these public hearings.
Here in
And-
Solvang?
What's that?
Here in Solvang?
Yes, yeah.
Thought I just heard we didn't get any input.
We did not.
We received it verbally by people who spoke up during public comment during the last two public hearings. And so we have that, and we've made a record of that, and a lot of that input made it into the presentation tonight. And so hopefully we'll get some more input through the contact email on the website, and then we'll take all that input and draw maybe 3, maybe 4 maps and present it to you. And then you, the council, and members of the public will have the chance to weigh in on those maps. You'll see it a month in advance, so you'll have plenty of time to consider it in advance, and then we'll all come together for that post-draft map hearing and discuss it together, and you can figure out amongst yourselves which of those you think is the best, or maybe propose revisions, and then we'll come back again for the second hearing and then eventually adopt one of those maps.
I think he's referring to when Aaron Peterson talked about how you could divide the city up, if you remember that.
Yeah, and that was a good.
It was a great point.
A great point. Start at one end.
I didn't think that was official. That was, he said that was
But I
one way to
liked it.
do it.
I liked it. But then again, does that step on some of their demanded criteria if we do it that way? To me, you could, it's like,
Good
do you
question.
pick, do you pick 3 out of the 10?
Well, I think if we just divided it up by equal population.
I
and
totally
let
agree
it go
with
at
you. And what
that,
else are you gonna do?
There's nothing else you can do. It's still good. Did we?
Daniel, would you be able to put up the screen with the neighborhoods that were listed?
Yes.
With populations?
Well, those are just individual little neighborhoods. That's
Right.
not 4.
But then is this 1, is this 2, is this 3, and is this 4? You can run it that way.
But see,
However,
that's what that Councilman Thomas was saying. How do we know what the population is? Can we draw a circle
Yeah.
around that and say, what's the population
I know,
now?
that to me is actually kind of cohesive. So, okay, do we have the right numbers there? Fine, let's go with that, save some money.
If I can chime in a little bit on this, I think the procedures that we have been going through with the public hearings is information gathering. We're not asking you to make final decisions on this. It just goes into the hopper to come up with ideas. So if there are readily identified communities of interest that the council wishes to preserve or comment on, that's part of the public hearing process. If there are just simple population numbers, if you notice that all the population was north of Mission Drive, that would give you some additional information. There are some inequalities in the numbers there. So all that goes into the hopper to provide the demographer some background on things that are important to the community, but also keeping in mind the impact of making sure that the city is not unduly using district elections to suppress a particular voter group from electing a candidate of its choice. So with the information that's been provided, you may not think that there has been, but there has been some information provided that informs the discussion about how those draft maps will be. Then you'll have draft maps that will have numbers attached to them, the population that will take all that into account. And then you can make some decisions. Does that make sense? Is that something that fits right for Solvang? And is that fundamentally something that would allow an identified group to elect a candidate of its choice? So those will be coming back, but all this information is the information gathering stage. It's not to come up with a final decision tonight.
Can Mr. Mayor, may I ask?
You
Can we
may.
go back to the previous map? Oh, it's there but not here, I can't see.
Yeah.
Okay. With your circles. The one we were just discussing.
There we go.
Okay. So if I may stand up, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
Okay, so you were saying that the majority of your population is right here, right? So you've got one district, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is where the majority of your population is. So then you find out, okay, we gotta do 200 over this one, 200 out of here, 200 out of there. Bingo.
And we're back to what Jim was
But
saying.
then,
That's what he's
but
asking
then
for.
does that fit, conform to all the other criteria that we need?
If you put up one of the layers, which is the percent CBAP Latino, and you see where the concentration is, that's going to inform where the concentration is perhaps of a group that would be identified as wanting to have a candidate of its own choosing. And if you click on each one of those to determine where your population centers are, to allow those groups to identify a candidate of their choosing, it may coincide with the diagram that you just drew with your hands up there. Again, additional information that allows Daniel and his company to figure out, okay, does this make sense? Maybe the downtown itself is a separate district. Maybe you combine the southern part, Alisal, up with Skip Mesa. Maybe that makes sense as an identifiable group. Maybe it doesn't. But these are options that you'll have, and once you see the maps with the number of people in them, and you understand that there's roughly proportional numbers in each one of them, then you can move those boundaries slightly. And I think,
Yeah, and downtown has 13 residents, so all you need to do is get your family to vote for you and you're in.
Perfect. So I think what I heard is, we should just give up on this for now and wait until the maps come back and we'll take a look at it.
I think if you have additional inputs, Daniel and his company would like to hear them. If you have no further inputs at this point, then Daniel and his company have the information that they will be able to draft maps for you.
So take that, the ones that would you guys be okay with those 4 sections and then drawing from that center section? Because
Daniel,
We're gonna be
why don't we just
paying
make a
him to do
quota?
that.
Could I ask, how expensive is it to get the map that I'm talking about where you can draw an area and see what the population is within that area? I mean, how much money are we talking about?
Haven't they done that though?
He said they could do it.
Yeah, the first map that he showed, I keep
No,
stepping on
no.
you guys, I apologize. Had numbers, that first map had numbers.
It's
in each area.
already here. That's the census blocks.
Those are the blocks, but they don't necessarily tell you the population aggregate.
Oh, I thought it did. I thought it had numbers of residents in that particular area.
There's that.
Daniel, you want to pull up that interactive map just one more time with the numbers on it?
Yes.
I think what Councilmember Thomas was interested in is there a tool that you can aggregate each of those census blocks to determine how much the total population is in there? They do have the individual populations, but unless you go and take a piece of paper and add them all up, I don't think there's a layer on there that I was able to find that show the total population in a given drawn district.
I have a 10 key in my office, I could do it for you.
Daniel,
We have population by census block group, which you see the colored areas. But if those are, I mean, this one is already too big for a district. So really, your best recourse using this tool is to use the numbers that you see here and take a calculator and manually add them up. And then you can get a sense of, like, if you want to start in one section of the city and go inward, you can keep adding up until you get to 1,500 and then start again. But there are mapping tools that we've made available to other cities where it does add up the numbers for you as you actually use like a paintbrush tool and fill in the blocks, and there will be a screen at the right that shows you how many people are in each district that you make, so that is an option, but I don't think we have a price on that at this time, but I can get that to you if you're interested.
Council, I can work with the consultant and the existing contract to see what we can do and provide that tool to you and the public.
Thank you. I was wondering if there's anybody out in the audience that when they took note of the neighborhoods, does that seem like it encompasses all of the neighborhoods in Solvang.
Mr. Beebe?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. I agree with Councilman Clark. The biggest population wasn't even identified as a neighborhood. So, I used to live up looking down on the flat. To me, the flat was a neighborhood. It was the original structures that created the tourist town of Solvang in the 40s and 50s. And that's just that great big blank on the neighborhoods as identified. So, you know, if I can observe, you're in a position of exercising management by objection. You get an offering by the experts, equally divided by population, and you decide whether you like it or not. And you may be able to tweak it yourself. We'll find out how much that'll cost. But otherwise, you say, well, I don't know how many maps the consultant, is going to present to you, but you look at it. I'm sorry, it's management by exception, not by objection. And you decide. And each of those maps will have an evaluation, presumably based upon these priorities that you must meet in some kind of prioritization. So they'll be evaluated, and that evaluation will be presented to you as well. Good luck.
Can we ask the consultants to come up with 4 maps? I mean, we're not experts at this. They are.
Well, that's what
Come up with 4 maps at the next meeting and we'll pick one.
Councilmember Clark, yes, the next step would be for the consultant to draft the maps based on the input they have received to date.
Okay.
Those draft maps will be posted on the website for everybody's review on February 7th, so that there is a month of additional input from the public and the council before it comes to you in public meeting.
Do we have one more public hearing?
We have 2 more after
Two
the
more after
maps
tonight?
are posted, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Doesn't need to look at the map.
No. Maps won't come out until February.
February 7th is when the maps will be
We're
posted.
gonna have 2 more meetings before February?
No, after
To get more
February.
public input.
Yeah, it isn't coming at all,
So
yeah.
in February, you will have the maps available by the consultants. They will be posted publicly. We'll continue to receive input before we get back to you for your first official public hearing, and then you will have one more.
The only good thing about it is if you ever run for re-election, you'll have a yard sign for every single person in your district.
Yeah. All 6 of them.
That was basically a public hearing, and do we have any other public comment at all? Either in the audience or out in Zoom? I don't see any. Just close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And we could take a short 5-minute break
Thank you.
Thank you.
at, what time is it now? 8:53.
You would need to take a vote.
We'll be back in 5. All right, we'll be back in session. We're gonna break at 9:03, and we'll go to now item number 9, which is the receive marketing update.
Receive a marketing update from the City of Solvang marketing consultant, including Yule Fest proposed program.
Thank you. So as you would remember that this is, we're working under a new updated contract that started on July 1st of this year and goes through December 31st. We have a pretty robust program there with milestones that are specific for us to achieve. This is sort of, I think, the first substantive presentation that IDK will be making on the new milestones that they're working on. And as I've mentioned earlier today, that the TAC, Tourism Advisory Committee, has been seated. They held their first meeting last week and provided some general input in terms of what they think about the Yule Fest program that IDK has put together. So today's presentation from IDK will include that input for your review. Thank you.
Great. And Madam City Manager, I emailed you a couple of things, and so I've got the clicker here if you want to grab the first of the 2 PowerPoints. If Laser would be so kind. And I won't go through, I understand that it's the first substantive report, I can't say that word, I'm sorry. The first substantial report that we've delivered. So the city manager and I, as part of the new contract, meet every Friday for an hour or so and go through these things in depth. And I've had and I mean this with all sincerity, I've had the pleasure of delivering this presentation to the TAC as well. I know that I couldn't be very vocal about my thoughts there, but I'm super excited to be working with the TAC, and I'm very glad that it's been seated, and I look forward to continuing to support Solvang through that body. So with that, I'll go kind of quickly through this one, and it's in the packet, so if there's any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But this is essentially our KPIs and sort of how key performance index, key
performance indicators.
Key performance indicators, which is essentially how we're managed, or we're proposing to judge and score ourselves over the next 6 months. So, like I said, there's tons of detail in there, but I'll go through sort of the key focus areas so that you guys, yes, sir.
Real quick, Robert and I won't be looking at you. We're not turning our back on you. We can't see the screen from these far sides, so we have to look.
No problem. I appreciate the heads up.
You thought we were sleeping.
Yeah. So yeah, essentially what this document is doing is really laying the foundation that all of my subsequent reports will kind of come back to. And as we bring things to you, including Yule Fest, we'll tie it back to where it lands here in this report. So essentially we have 3 focus areas that we're focusing on. We're focusing on the brand foundations, which is just modernizing and elevating the Solvang brand without changing what's already here. Audience storytelling, so basically telling different stories to attract new growth segments, and then of course harmonizing our efforts, which this one I think is really, really important and something that we've come away from, but are working hard to move forward with, which is really harmonizing the efforts of recreation, which is doing phenomenal work for the locals. Working with the DMO that is responsible for marketing the overall valley, which is Visit San Ynez Valley, and then of course working with the business entity, the Chamber of Commerce, in order to amplify the businesses. And then of course our responsibility is to, as it says here, harmonize those efforts and deliver sort of a cohesive front. So on the brand foundation, we basically used your brand guidelines from the meeting that you just had, the State of the City. And what we've done, and we mentioned this earlier on, we've really identified these like 7 key areas, these 7 key audiences. And they break down in kind of 3 areas. So they're travelers with unique needs, travelers with specific tastes, and then seasonal travelers. And then we break that down further with families, pet lovers, which has exploded in COVID. Everybody and their uncle has gone and gotten a dog. Budget travelers that, you know, obviously their pocketbooks have been affected by COVID, so they're looking to travel on a budget. We have the opposite end of the spectrum, what we call colloquially the bougie explorer, which they've got money to burn. The art and architecture, so these are folks that are really interested in art and architecture. The folks that are interested in food are Epicurean traveler. And then of course our seasonal traveler in Christmas. So everything that we're doing on the Brand Foundation side is really trying to speak to one of these 7 very distinct groups. So again here for families, pet lovers, budget travelers, and Christmas audiences, we're leaning into our heritage, we're leaning into architecture and location, and we're promoting key season moments and visuals. And then of course for bougie, art and architecture, and Epicurean, we're showing a more sophisticated view of Solvang. And again, this goes back to what I said over a year ago now, that we see our responsibility not to come in and change anything, but to take the foundation that already exists, pull a couple of levers to make sure that we bring a more robust audience. So obviously one of the key brand foundations currently is that Solvang is a day trip location, and obviously like the regional DMO, we have a strong goal of growing overnight stays and encouraging longer term visits, and obviously encouraging day trippers to turn into overnight stays. Obviously the website's a big part of that. We'll talk about that later in the 6-month cycle. We're obviously shifting from a quick place to take a picture into more of a lifestyle so that we can encourage folks to stay longer. We'll talk about voice and tone again later in what we're working on, but again, I'll come back to these key points and we'll expand on them as we get to the points in our contract where we're working on these specific things. Obviously, exploration, content, and guide are the tactics that we're using to reinforce the Brown Foundation. They're in the packet. I'll let you guys read those, and we'll come back to that Brown Foundation as we present the new website here in a couple of weeks. Audience storytelling, this is where we're at right now. We're spending a lot of time on this. And so this is the videos that you approved, and we moved this ahead of brand just because in terms of time, we felt that it was really important to get these videos into the bloodstream. For the last 18 months, across all of our marketing channels, we're using what's called user-generated content. And while it's amazing and you know, it's truly what people are looking for because it's generated by the people who are coming, it doesn't necessarily speak the language that we want to speak. So we need these videos, which you approved back in July, in order to kind of reinvigorate that overall marketing mix. So we started shooting those about a month ago. They're currently being edited. You'll get to see one of the first edits, which thank God my global head of creative is on vacation for her 50th birthday, or she would murder me for showing you something that's not done yet, but I'm gonna give you a sneak peek anyway. So again, we really are focused on honoring the architecture, culture, location, and sites that already exist, but then modernizing them through look, styling, stories, and setting. What does that mean? We take a building that looks like a building, show it in a completely different way, and now it's something magical, new, and exciting. So really with you know, with the way that we're telling the story, we can tell a new story without having to actually change anything, which is really magical because we can reach new audiences. We love talking about Solvang storybook charms. You'll start to see that phrase, storybook charm, more and more and more, in addition to the Danish capital of America. But storybook charm sort of talks to those last 2 aspirational targets that we have. So obviously the tactic that we're in right now are these shorts in the fall video, which we'll show you in a minute. So the 7 video shorts are showcasing stories that appeal to each target audience group. The group that the story I'll show you today is the Christmas short. And then we'll also get a dedicated video to promote Solvang throughout the fall, which that's currently in edit and should be ready by the end of September. And then of course, within harmonizing our efforts, you know, we need to make sure that we're working in concert to drive the same outcomes. So whether that visitor comes to us through the visitor center, comes to us through Instagram, Facebook, comes to us through one of the many businesses, or comes to us through one of the hotels or wine tasting rooms, they all need to be receiving the same message so that we can start targeting them at different things, which is our roadmap. This is probably the most important slide in the whole thing that I've been sort of skipping towards. So everything that we're doing comes back to one of these 4 funnels: awareness, consideration, conversion, and advocacy. So right now, these videos are really focused on awareness and consideration. So basically, awareness is, who knows about Solvang, and then consideration is those people who know about Solvang, who's considering coming. Then, of course, once they're here, or once they have considered Solvang, we have to convert them to an actual stay. And then once they're here, we need them to be so excited that they go home and tell people. So just keep this one in mind. If there's any of these that you keep in front of you, this is an important one, because everything we do, including this YuleFest presentation you'll see in a minute, I'll show you how each element of YuleFest is targeting either awareness, consideration, conversion, or advocacy. Because each thing we're doing within YuleFest is targeting a different funnel, and then within that funnel, a different key segment. These are the KPIs, so these are what the stick by which Madam City Manager will keep prodding us. So obviously through awareness, we're judging total impressions and audience reach. For consideration, we're judging website visits, click-to-call buttons, registrations, successful registrations, and then of course follower count. Conversion, we're measuring the total bookings that are being converted through any one of the avenues that we're sending to, so everything comes into a landing page and then those get converted. That's our conversion funnel. And then our KPI against advocacy is word of mouth and positive social mentions. So this is sort of what I just said, but in a more intelligent paper that our strategist wrote. Then this is some of the PR. I won't go through this. You've seen it in a million other meetings. And then recap, brand foundations, audience storytelling, harmonizing efforts. That's what we're doing. So with that, I will show you. You can take this off, Madam City Manager. With that, I will show you the video. This is not done at all, so please don't judge it as a complete video. But I did think that it was important to show you sort of 97% of the first YuleFest commercial that is almost done.
Where do these go, Scott?
So these will go all over the place. So again, depending on the funnel that we're targeting, you'll start to see these in social. You'll start to see them in key places. So Red Try is a sort of a mommy blog that we had great success with in YuleFest 2019. So you'll see them placed in Red Try. You'll see local placements with the local newspapers. You'll see some television, though it's not a priority for us because it's expensive and it doesn't really do what we want it to do. But you'll see different cuts of this. So this is a 60-second cut, but you'll see like 10 and 15-second cuts of this that get spread everywhere, and then we do what's called A/B testing. So we see which cut gets the most conversion, and then that's the cut that people start to see more, and then we associate copy with that too. So then we start to narrow down that conversion funnel. But ultimately, the purpose of this video is awareness, consideration, and conversion, those very first 3 things. So it gets placed sort of all over the place. And then, incidentally, we went and took a little bit of risk with the way that we filmed this. We filmed this in a very specific style. This is very different than what you would expect for a normal tourism marketing video. And that was a calculated risk, both because we need to cut through the noise of tourism marketing. Everybody and their uncle is talking to tourists right now because everybody's panicking about what to do. So we were really, really intentional about shooting this in a way that would cut through that noise, but also something that we can submit to all of the film blogs, the film nerds, because the film buffs will instantly see the type of lens we used and the type of composition. It's a very Wes Anderson style composition. And we're confident that once these start going out into the bloodstream, we've got a whole list through our PR team run by Anna. We've got a whole list of film blogs that we're submitting these to so that they can get a little additional legs that way. So anyway, this one's it's not terrible, I think it's okay, but it's not done. So anyway, go ahead.
The kid with the report, it's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really prepared for this, but here you go.
don't judge me too harshly. So that's the first of the 6 long form videos. And then there's different cuts of that focus more on different things. So you'll notice special appearance by Ulahus and a few of its employees, as well as some of our Danish maids. So I'm very excited to start putting that out into the bloodstream. All right, so with that, let's talk about Yulefest. And then if it's okay with everybody, I'll take all of the questions together rather than break them up, unless you want to do them now so that none of us forget. I'm getting old.
What does that make us?
Younger than me in some ways.
I don't think so, Val.
We'll take them at the end.
All right, perfect, thank you. All right, so Yulefest. So, in 2019, we did some over-the-top stuff to sort of shake the foundation of what Yulefest was and had become. We learned an awful lot. We spoke to many merchants and learned what they absolutely did not like and what we absolutely will be run out of town if we ever try and do again. And then we also learned some of the things that they really did like. And we talked to tons of visitors and got similar feedback. So with that, what we've done is sort of refocused on the things that make Yulefest and Solvang in particular like an amazing Christmas destination. And that's that charm, character, storybook charm. Told you you'd hear it. That storybook charm that you can only get in Solvang. So with that, I'll take you through the first of the mini activations. So and this one is, I can already tell, going to be the one that gets the most questions. So don't judge the picture. It's a terrible picture, and I will have that conversation with my graphics department when I get home. But the first is a version of the Solvang Christmas light show that we did, not the over-the-top Sol Vegas as it was, as it became known last year. And Laser's over there chuckling because he ran that show. This is a much more slimmed down and Solvang appropriate version of a light show. And essentially what we'll do is we'll tell this story through motion graphics, using our in-house motion graphics team. And we'll tell a story of Solvang, TBD, what that story is, but it'll be amazing because our our motion graphics team is awesome. But we will put together a motion graphics story that will bring to life the side of a building somewhere in Solvang. We are currently looking at something adjacent to the park so that folks can mill about in the park, being ready for it. It'll happen one time per night on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. I agree wholeheartedly with what the chamber is saying, that the businesses, especially during Christmas, need to stay open a little bit later. And I think that this can be the stick, much like the over-the-top light show was, that got people here. This can be the stick that gets them here, and then the businesses can stay open and earn their business. So essentially what we want to do is using a technology called 3D projection mapping. We want to be able to tell approximately 5 to 7 minute cute sort of story on the side of one of the buildings of Solvang. And this hits all of the funnels because when we put it out on the internet and start showing these things tend to get legs and run. So it's the awareness and consideration funnel when people start to share this on social media, but all the way down to the advocacy funnel because people are being like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this thing I saw in Solvang. We have to go back. When are you available? Let's go the day after Christmas. You've got to see this amazing thing. So this literally goes back to every single funnel. So this is the first element, the Solvang Christmas Light Show. This is sort of a mood board about that light show. And if you'll notice in the top left, and this is something I didn't create a slide for on its own because I wanted to talk this concept through with the TAC. If I haven't said it yet, I love the TAC. Thank you for that because it gives us a chance to sort of chat these things through with folks that are interested. So the thing you see in the top left, this is a Aurora Borealis. So there's a little bit of stage magic there. It's a 3D projection map technology, but it's on a very thin mesh. So we would need permission from one of the local business owners to stretch this behind their business. But it's something much like what we just went out and saw with the Air Force or with the Delta launch. It's something that you could see kind of throughout town and something that is completely unexpected and something that will drive people to go, how in the heck did they do that? So this is something that we're proposing Thursday through Sunday, again, as a way to encourage people to come to town in conjunction with the chamber, to get people to come to town at night and give them something kind of neat to do that's less obtrusive than the over-the-top light and music show that we did last year. Getting a little bit more traditional, so Solvang Park was where we'll do the Santa meet and greet. We're going to call it the Nordenpollen, not the Lod like we did last time. No red barn, no cut down the trees, no, none of that craziness. So instead of setting the stage that Santa's barn is where he lives, we're setting the stage that Solvang Park is the Danish North Pole. Every Saturday of Yule Fest from 12 to 4, Santa will be available for pictures, and we'll transform the Solvang Park gazebo into Santa's workshop, which is there in the middle. Again, much more traditional than what we've done in the past, but kind of exciting and fun. And again, back to the first two funnels, this is one of those things that people will take photos of and will get us legs on the awareness and consideration funnels. Candlelight tours, we're really excited to bring these back. Sue and her family can't wait to do these. They were a wild success in 2019 until people met the tour guide that we hired. Turns out that was some bad advice, and I'm happy to say that the tour guide that's been doing it for a number of years is on payroll and is very happy to do these tours. So the Click Guards will be back doing their wildly popular candlelight tours, which is, again, another thing to get folks here after hours, and then it's up to the businesses to make sure that they're open and taking their money, which we'll work closely with the chamber to make sure that happens. Christmas market. So again, this is not this is something that we've talked about a lot in Solvang, and I want to be crystal clear. We are not in any way advocating that we bring anything in from outside Solvang, nor are we even advocating that we bring things from other parts of Solvang into one area. What we are advocating for is, through a bit of advertising magic, we transform the entire town into a traditional Christmas market. So we market the town in its storybook charm as a place that you'd want to come for Christmas. So if any of you have been to London, Paris, Denmark, or anything else at Christmas, if you close your eyes, you remember the smell of the roasted chestnuts, you remember the mulled wine, you remember the sounds, you remember like how cozy, Renee would say it's hygge, of course, everybody knows, but it's a cozy feeling, and we can recreate that by marketing that if you want to come and shop local in Southern California in 2021, you need to be in Solvang. And we market that to the folks who are already planning on coming to the Christmas experience in Cambria or the amazing Field of Lights in Paso, and we convince them to come just a little bit further south, stay for a night, and experience our only found in Solvang Christmas market. And we don't do that by bringing in outside vendors. We do that by creating a very intentional guide of where you can go find gifts for him, gifts for kids, gifts for dad, that you can only find in Solvang. The other concept that we're still working on is here on the right. As part of that Christmas market, we're considering creating hyggehus, which would be like a cozy hut or cozy house that we would work with a local merchant to sell chocolate or hot chocolate or mulled wine, and we could play a little bit with that sense of smell, because we think that's the one piece that was missing, and we would do that there on Copenhagen. Of course, we'll bring back the tree lighting ceremony, which is a huge local favorite. We're working with a potential vendor to produce that on our behalf, TBD, but Sue is negotiating that contract now. But we anticipate bringing all of the fan favorites back. Mr. Martino was very keen to provide his support once again for the tree lighting ceremony. So we'll bring back a lot of the elements that the locals are used to, the dancing around the tree, the bands, the various bands, and it'll be a really, really lovely night for locals. Again, mood board. Nice Adventure, this has been great for a number of years. We improved it a little bit by doing QR codes, so we got more data. We'll bring that back. We're working with our motion team to create a little bit more of an augmented reality piece to this, but this becomes a very, very, very key place that we gather data. We learn what time people are doing this. We learn how many people are doing it as a couple, as a family, as a single person. We learn where they live because we ship them a prize at the end, so we get their physical address. So the dollar value of the data for this free, everybody says if something costs nothing, then you are the product. This is one of those things. You get to do the free Nice adventure, but you become our product. And our product is all of this data that goes back to the businesses that participate in the Nice adventure. So we'll do that again. And there will be a little bit more of a story element now that we've had a little bit more time and have our creative team on it. So each spot will be part of a broader story. COVID dependent, we're talking about doing the Skull Wine and Stein Stroll. The tourism committee was very adamant that this be rethought, so we're working to rethink it. We want to potentially raise the price to discourage those who just want to come and get completely wasted and stumble around Solvang. So COVID dependent, we are looking at doing the Wine and Stein Stroll again. These are the wines and steins that we brought in 2019, fresh update for 2021. And again, COVID dependent, we'll likely do a version of this that works again with the chamber to work with all the different tasting rooms to make sure that it's not something that turns into a drug fest. This is the team that's working on this. Obviously, Adamar and Jamie. Jamie's the one who's celebrating her 50th birthday and would murder me for showing that unfinished commercial. Obviously, myself, Jacob, Sheila, Britt, our motion graphics guy, and Nick, our studio designer, just so you could see all the folks who are working on it. And Jacob says thank you, even though he wasn't here to show you this. All right, I talked way too long, and I managed to get through that in 15 minutes.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. We appreciate that. Is there any questions?
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Great, thank you.
So, a lot of great ideas.
We're starting the Friday after
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm actually getting calls from Riverside County. People are actually emailing us from last year wanting to know.
Yeah,
that's December 3rd, right?
Yep, absolutely. So out of respect for obviously the process and working with the new TAC, we wanted, and the city manager, we wanted to present it to the TAC, which we've done. We've incorporated a lot of their feedback. We wanted to introduce it to you before we ever put it out to the public. But Councilmember Clark is correct. The public is a chomping. Yeah. So with your approval, we'd like to start slowly slipping it into the bloodstream that not only is it going to happen, but here are some of the elements. And one thing I forgot to mention, because it's not in there, I've been in talks with Jeanette. They are going to bring back the nativity even with the closure of the Theater Fest. So we're really excited to work with her to produce the nativity in the park the weekend after the tree lighting ceremony.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Scott, thanks so much for what you do, by the way. When people call us from out of town, when can they go on what website to see what you just showed us?
Yep, solvangusa.com is the first stop, and then Solvang.
Is it up and loaded now?
It won't be, because again, we wanted permission from this body before we did that, but it can be live on Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay,
yep.
Thank you.
And then we have our team kind of powwow Tuesdays at 3, so it'll be done after that. And then solvingyulefest.org is where we put things in 2019 because we didn't have access to the solvingusa.com. So we'll update both in tandem, but all of our landing pages will now direct people to solvingusa.com because that's an asset the city owns that we want. That's where the meat of 20 years of investment have gone, and we want to continue to cultivate that asset rather than try and create a new one.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. I did want to ask real quick, parade?
Oh,
there.
Yes. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. Yes, the parade will happen the night before the tree lighting ceremony, and the TAC mentioned that too, that I forgot to put it in the presentation, and the version I emailed, I left the parade out. I am so sorry.
So the parade is going to happen at night?
No, it will happen.
The Saturday after the tree lighting.
Correct. Did I say that before? Yeah, it'll happen the Saturday after
So
the
the
tree
4th.
lighting. Mm-hmm.
Correct. What date is tree lighting?
The
3rd, December 3rd, which is the Friday night, and then
Correct.
Saturday is typically that parade.
Yes, and we are working with Caltrans to secure that permit, obviously, because with COVID, we didn't get the annual renewal of those permits. But hopefully, we went ahead and submitted all 4. So for Danish Days, for ours. There were 2 others that were routine events. We went ahead and submitted for all of those. And then this isn't on the agenda, so I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. Am I allowed to mention the 2 things that will be coming up in terms of permitting? Even though it's not on the agenda?
It's a marketing update, so yes, I would say.
Okay,
so.
great, thank you. So you guys will see on the next meeting 2 items. One is the Wheels and Windmills Car Show, which is October the 9th. Super excited for that one. And you'll also see the Solvang Half Marathon. Those guys have a conditional permit pending public health that was issued like a year ago. That we told them that if public health allowed their event to happen in what felt like a faraway time of November of 2021, then we could do a permit at that time. But the time is now upon us. So we're working on getting the final paperwork together for all of that, and that will be presented to you at the next council meeting.
And what day was that?
That is I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry. It's, I can send it to the city manager after this meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great job, Scott, as always. Thank you. Right. Moving on to item number 10.
Traffic calming, Laurel Avenue speed humps near Solvang School. Direct staff to proceed with 2 additional speed humps on Laurel Avenue between 4th Place and Atterdag Road, and fund the improvements with the cost savings from the South Ellisall Road pavement reconstruction project.
Great, thank you very much, Anna Marie. So I'd like to start by just giving a little background on what led up to this request. So you may remember about 9 months ago, we were finishing up the Solvang School sidewalk project, and one of the locations on that project was Laurel Avenue between 4th Place and Atterdag Road, more specifically the north side of Laurel Avenue there. And while construction was ongoing on Laurel Avenue, several of the residents asked me, how come there's speed humps on the block of Laurel West and around down to Mission Drive, but no speed humps there right next to the Solvang School. And I said, I didn't know why that was like that. That all happened, before I started working here. So, and they started inquiring, well, how can we get speed humps on this block of Laurel? And I explained to them the city's speed hump request policy and procedures, and so they obtained the documents with the procedures and the petition and the forms and everything, and then subsequently submitted all that to us. But if you could, okay. And up here, or? Yeah, but one way. Oh, okay, thank you. So to begin, as I mentioned, the request of the location is Laurel Avenue between 4th Place and Atterdag. And with the petition, 75% of the residents on this block have requested the speed humps. So that's really a pretty high percentage. And then, as mentioned, the other blocks of Laurel Avenue between Mission Drive and 4th Place have 8 existing speed humps. So this map shows for the speed humps, the 5th speed hump on Laurel is down closer to Mission Drive, off the bottom left of the exhibit there. But you can see Solvang School there, kind of in the middle, and where a lot of the existing speed humps are located. So one of the things we do in reviewing a request is contact the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department. And in this case, since Solvang School is right there, we contacted Solvang School previously, and they basically have expressed a neutral position regarding speed humps. So they don't really have an opinion one way or the other. Although they are definitely interested in safety features and anything that's traffic calming. So we also contacted the Sheriff's Department, and they provided their approval of the 2 proposed speed humps. And then in the staff report, at the time the staff report was submitted and published, we hadn't got a response back from the fire department. But just a couple days ago, they did respond, and they also approved the 2 proposed speed humps. So this map shows the approximate location of the 2 proposed speed humps. And what we'll do is, if the city council ends up approving this this evening, we'll go out and more precisely locate the speed humps, because we don't want to block anyone's driveway or put it, like, for example, in front of a fire hydrant or something like that. That might be weird. But this is the approximate location of the 2 proposed speed humps. I think that's... So the estimated cost of construction is approximately $15,000, and staff recommends that the city council approve the installation of 2 new speed humps on Laurel between 4th Place and Atterdag. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time?
Nope.
Claudia, anything?
Not at this time.
No, okay. Yeah, I'm just glad that I had a question about the fire department, if we would be a little bit jumping the gun, because I know at times they've had some opposition to some of the speed bumps, more so than I guess the humps.
Yeah, generally they don't like them, but they understand that there's other needs other than just, you know, the truck to be able to get there 1 or 2 seconds quicker. So in this case, they did actually state that they approved them in their email reply to us. So.
All right.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
It's interesting, the speed humps on Laurel are smoother than the new ones that the residents just south of Solvang School.
On Elm, yes.
On Elm, yeah. What's the difference?
Well,
And why?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So the existing ones on Laurel were built quite a while back, and I think over time they do sort of kind of get compacted, and the asphalt and it gets lower. And then if you slurry seal the street or do any kind of pavement work, but also we've modified and updated the standard detail that we use to construct them, specifically so it will be a little bit taller. It's maybe like 1.5 inches. The new ones on Elm are about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches taller. So eventually, that'll be a project I would recommend for your future public works director, maybe with the next paving project to raise those existing ones.
Thank you.
But these new ones, if you approve them, will be built based on the same exact standard detail, the updated standard detail that was used on Elm.
On Elm?
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the 4 are actually on 5th Street?
The existing ones?
Are on 5th Street, not Laurel? Because on that, it shows on.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Although at one
that's
point,
correct. That's correct, yeah.
5th Street turns into Laurel on that one end.
Yes, you are correct, yes. Sorry, I misspoke.
Just double checking. Any public comment out there? Seeing none, and we only have our Mayor Pro Tem and Zoom, so bring it back. Do I entertain a motion?
Yep, I move that we approve the 2 speed humps.
I'll second it.
Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lorona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Yes, we need a 9:30 motion. Can I have
I will make a motion that we continue this meeting after 9:30.
Second.
roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lorona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
No.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
David's about to be
Doggone it.
2 no votes tonight, Charlie.
I know what's happening. So item number 11.
First reading of an ordinance adding musical entertainment as a conditional use in the tourist-related zone district Tourist Commercial District, and other conforming edits. Introduced for first reading an ordinance of the people of the Chartered City of Solvang, California, adding musical entertainment as a conditional use in the tourist-related zone district tourism commercial district and making other conforming edits.
City Attorney will present.
I'm sorry?
City Attorney will present the report.
You will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, before you tonight is the first reading of an ordinance adding musical entertainment as a conditional use in the tourist-related zone. In our review of issues relating to code enforcement over the last year or so, we determined that there was a need to have some allowance for businesses in the TRC having the ability to play music indoors and outdoors at their establishment. And the best way to address that on a case-by-case basis is to allow it by a conditional use permit. So what we've done is we've added a new definition of musical entertainment to the zoning code regulation definitions. We removed a definition that was not found anywhere else in the code since there wasn't a need and there was a potential to conflict with the definition of musical entertainment. And then we provided a provision to allow conditional use of musical entertainment incidental to any permitted or conditional use allowed in the TRC. So if a business that is allowed by right or allowed by conditional use in the TRC wanted to provide music, it could apply to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission would make certain findings as to whether or not the conditional use would be allowed, whether it is compatible with existing and future uses within the TRC. Planning Commission could also impose conditions such as hours of operation and other things. So it just provides another opportunity or another tool in the planning process for Planning Commission to consider these types of requests. And obviously a conditional use permit, if it were violated or otherwise not harmonious with the public health and safety and welfare, then the Planning Commission could move to revoke that as well. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a decibel reading on any of this that would happen? I know it was with a noise or some type of noise ordinance.
There is not in the proposed ordinance. There are two reasons for that. There are other noise regulations in the municipal code already that deal with excessive noise. The second reason is that unless you have someone who is trained in the use of a decibel meter and you have very clear standards as to where the decibel meter should be placed, it makes it a difficult code enforcement case. So what we've done instead is we've made it that the musical entertainment will not disturb the peace and comfort of the neighborhood. That sounds like a more vague standard, but it's actually fairly well defined in the case law as to what that is. There was a case, I believe, out of Fresno involving car cruises, and they had a definition that it would be not noise that would offend the peace of the community. And the court said that is sufficient for a reasonable person to understand, because it's not an individual subjective standard of noise, it's a community-based standard. Same thing here. If the Planning Commission makes a determination that for whatever reason a business is operating outside the bounds of its conditional use permit, then it can be revoked without having to go out on a code enforcement basis with a noise meter and prove it beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case.
Okay.
Does that apply to Vokes with loud radios?
Yes.
There's going to be a little bit different regulations on that, because those are largely regulated by the vehicle code. There may be ways that the city can enforce it from excessive noise, but it's not something that we can cite as a vehicle code violation.
Okay. Bummer. Are you talking, the MOCs you could cite for a vehicle code violation of 50 feet?
Or we could ask Darren
Sheriff's Department.
to put a governor on volume control on those
We'll go back to
things.
Quincy.
I mean, we could work with him on that,
I know, yeah.
because it doesn't annoy
We'll bring it
people.
back to,
Gotcha,
to
thank
the
you.
music. I know that, I mean, I'm a total nerd when it comes to music and live entertainment. As most of you know, I play in bands and do a lot of different music stuff. With that said, we were getting ready to remodel our Theater Fest, and I know that for about 3 years, I spent a lot of summers out with a decimal meter because the music that was in downtown Copenhagen was disturbing the peace of the patrons that were actually listening to the Theater Fest. We're going to be starting something here that the Theater Fest is not going to be even, I guess the concern would be for me is, are we opening up a can of worms? I would be actually interested to see how you, as a business owner of a wine event, Ms. Sony, would appreciate having music, and I think that would be something that maybe, just your neighbor, if your neighbor came and you maybe didn't like music or didn't want to have the music there, and the way it's set up right now with Copenhagen, the music could be either inside or outside based on the way this ordinance is read. Do we want amplified music outside in Copenhagen, right in front? I know when I was in Nashville, every single bar and most every venue, whether it was a restaurant or not, had music, and every single one with their windows were open. But that's not Solvang. That's Nashville. That's Music City, USA. And that's not what Solvang is. And I'm just, as much as I love music, I'm just wondering if we're opening up just ourselves to, more discussion about noise and things that are outside. And I would love to be that person playing or hearing. For a while there during COVID, there was a couple of guys that would open up their suitcase or guitar case and be picking some pretty nice tunes outside, totally, just out by the park. But if every business would be allowed to have that, how do we make that designation of when one would have it and when one wouldn't?
Well, I think that's what the planning commission would be examining. They need to make a finding under the ordinance that the nature, scale, and operating characteristics of the musical entertainment is compatible with existing and future land uses in the vicinity of the use where the musical entertainment is going.
And that's what the CUP is for.
That's what the CUP is for. And I understand the concern about having amplified music on every corner. I just went through Winslow, Arizona, and you can listen to the Eagles on all four corners in Winslow, Arizona, if you're standing on the corner. It's a very odd thing to have that kind of amplified music. I believe, though, that the Planning Commission has the tools to make the determination. So if you had every business on Copenhagen coming in and asking to have live music every night, the Planning Commission would put a no on that. And if they didn't, the people who are affected by it would appeal it to the City Council, and the City Council would have a no on that. So I would encourage the council to at least consider the ordinance, put it into place. If it becomes a problem, obviously it's a learning experience. We can tweak it as necessary. But the Planning Commission would be the first stop for any concerns about having excessive noise in the TRC.
But what is the current situation? If this wasn't around, what happens today if someone wants to put music out? Anything?
We generally would look at it as an incompatible use. That's not something that is authorized as a permissible use in the TRC, so it could be a code enforcement issue. It could be. It depends on the nature of that. Now, if it's interior and it's not audible from the exterior of the building, and you have someone playing a guitar inside and no one can hear it from the outside, that's not going to be a code enforcement. If you have someone who is sitting outside who is playing a guitar loudly with an amplifier, and that's not a compatible use with the use that is permitted in the TRC, then we might be looking at a code enforcement situation.
So what does this ordinance give us that what you just said is a code enforcement situation doesn't give us?
This adds the additional layer that if you do not have a conditional use permit for it, then it is an additional code enforcement that's much more clear to prove. Before we have this, we're looking at other ways to kind of patch together a violation, is what I'm saying.
So this almost protects as much against music as it does allow it to happen.
Correct.
But it also does allow it, which right now, we have no way of allowing it. It happens, and if nobody objects, it's fine.
That's essentially the enforcement stance that we've had, if no one has objected, and we have had some complaints recently, and so we looked at it, and I said at the beginning, this came out of our code enforcement concerns. We look for a way to address the issue at hand. If it is desirable to the council to have music on occasion under certain circumstances in the TRC, this is the way that you make it happen. If the council doesn't want any kind of amplified or other music in the TRC, then we present you another ordinance. This is just a flat prohibition. There shall not be.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So if somebody wants to get a conditional use permit so that the planning commission can approve for somebody to have music, are they subject to the same fees? Does somebody that want to play guitar out in the street is gonna have to pay $1,200 or whatever to be able to do it? Does Bruco, if they wanna have a band on the patio on top of the fee that they have to pay to the band, they're also gonna have to pay $1,200 to be able to have live music?
Well, the conditional use permit would not be on a per event basis. It would apply to the property. So if a business owner was looking to have live music or bring in musicians on a rotating basis, they would need to have that permission up front. So yes, they would have to pay that permit fee, but then they would be able to bring in additional musicians. So it's not on a per event basis.
Okay. So based on that, there's no way that somebody that is playing out in the street can get permitted because it's not within a business? Is that my understanding?
That's correct. It's got to be incidental to a permitted or conditional use allowed in the TRC.
Okay.
Is there any way to do it on a well, for instance, Wednesday night at the park, music, I had to park away, we'd walk up the street, there was always some guy on Copenhagen playing his guitar very nicely. I don't know if he was brought in by the farmer's market, or he just decided to sit there.
More than likely, sit there.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And I don't see that's the whole thing. I mean, it was never offensive. The music was actually really good.
And I can tell you that good music is in the eye of the beholder, not beholder. It really depends. I think it is a very subjective thing. There are situations where someone may complain about music. It may be that you get no complaints. It may be that the music is provided as part of a special event, so it's handled by a different part of the municipal code. But for your street musician who comes and sets up, it will not come across my desk unless somebody complains about it. And if someone complains about it, then I look to see, is it a violation of the municipal code in some manner? And if so, how do we enforce that situation? But I haven't had any of those come across my desk. I have prosecuted those in other cities, though, so I do know that codes exist to prohibit that kind of conduct.
Yeah, so I assume then that the Chamber of Commerce has a CUP for the music in the park?
Well, that would be a special event if they're doing a special event.
That's a special event.
Yeah, that would be something separate.
Okay, thank you.
What you're describing is actually what I used to have to go out on many calls for musicians, either in the gazebo or in the parking lot, doesn't matter. Any of those musicians, part of it was you had to have a permit, and you also had to have approval from the city manager prior to setting up the itinerant musician, so to speak. And so that was how that was covered and handled.
Music in the park was permitted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've already asked for public comment. Would you, please? I asked, I was hoping.
Okay. Thank you for hearing me. All I can comment on being in Copenhagen, and particularly since we've had the Parkettes, his music outside has been an area that we've addressed that's been extremely problematic. You know, on whether we've called here the city hall or called the police, they've said there's nothing they can do. I've tried to address it with my landlord, with tenants that are the problem. He says it's the city's put the Parkettes. So I've been held hostage by a business that plays loud rap, rock and roll, has karaoke, and people are nearly screaming out the doors. Where I've had tasters that even as late as this past weekend would go, what is that? You know, and nearly got up and left my establishment because of what was going on a few doors down from my business. I've even stood and gone as far down as nearly a block and you could hear it still going. So you have what's going on inside with one set of music with people doing karaoke and howling, and then you have outside amplified music on speakers. So I'm in favor of some kind of ordinance that can help direct and protect, whether it's my business or other businesses, that we can mandate what's going on favorably, whether it's conditional use permits or what. The other thing that I was thinking about is because it's Solvang, unless you wanted to pipe in music that was more conducive to the village and particularly Copenhagen. I mean, that would be one way that could eliminate something. I don't know.
Thank you for those comments.
You're welcome.
There should be something that the sheriff's department can do, though.
They say not, I have to file something.
Well, that part is true. There has to actually be a complaint and someone needs to be willing to sign. That's the whole process of the way that works. So, but it is still available. Yes, sir, Mr. Hutchins.
I kind of want to just amplify what the speaker just said and offer a couple of ideas. Various cases, you've discussed various cases, you know, a site-based business, these moving vehicles with, they're really boom boxes on wheels, freelance musicians, and then events. So there's at least 4 different cases that in some way you may want to address, and each one is unique enough from the others that you may want to address it in some sort of, you know, subsequent manner underneath one overall umbrella. The thing that's driving us up the wall, certainly me, I'm out there all day on Copenhagen serving people wine under these parquettes. And I have had the experience on multiple occasions. It's part of their business, about 3 doors down, it's part of their business model to bring in falling down drunk karaoke from about 6 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays, and on Sundays in many cases. And the interesting thing is that they have outdoor blasting music that is different music than the blasting indoor music with the karaoke. So by the time it gets 3 doors down, it's like this cacophony that I'm shouting over to talk to my people. Okay, so from the standpoint of a fixed site, there needs to be something about to limit the noise pollution, basically. We have, our boom box is about this big. It channels music from a smartphone, and it's bossa nova or something like that in a kind of a low tone that you can't hear 10 feet away from one end of the parquet or the other. Maybe even you can't even hear it beyond the parquet. That kind of thing would seem appropriate. But when you're polluting the whole block and nobody seems to be able to do anything about it, one of the consequences of success here would be that something would be in place that people would have to have a basis for complaint. We could have some control over to what extent it influences our business from up the street in any direction. And then the other thing is when one of those rolling boom boxes comes down the street, everything has to stop until they pass. And there's a stop sign right there. And of course, the slower you go, the more you're noticed. So they tend to go really slow. And that's extremely disruptive, not just to our business, but to the psyche of the people on the streets. So please fashion something that we can hang our hat on so that this community can control that kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Thomas?
is there anything from our Isla Vista music ordinances that we put in place that could come into play here? Might be worth looking at. I know we had to do some special music ordinances out there because it just got to be where nobody could sleep. So it'd
There
be something
are
maybe we could look at.
ordinances in place for the noise coming from the boom boxes, moving boom boxes, as you said. Those are vehicle code violations. Music isn't supposed to be heard from 50 feet, but if no one calls, the sheriff's department doesn't know. So all I can say is that's their job. That's what we pay them to do. And I will make sure that at least the lieutenant is aware of some of those complaints. Same with the music outside. Even without this in place, there's still a noise ordinance in place but again, you have to be willing to sign because it's that as a deputy and as the sheriff's department, our peace cannot be disturbed. You can yell at me, say whatever you want to me. My peace cannot be disturbed. Your peace can be disturbed as the general public. So if your peace is disturbed, then you need to report that and you need to be willing to sign it's basically the citizen's arrest form. And that's the process that has to take place. Otherwise, then they're just going out there for nothing. But they can give everybody warnings. And then if they have to come back, if someone is willing to sign, that's the way it works in neighborhoods when you have loud parties in the backyard. All of that is the same way. But it's just that education of everyone that wants to complain still needs to step up and take the next step. And that's sign the citizen arrest form so they can cite them and have them appear in court. That will immediately stop the music.
Well,
It happens on all of it. So.
It hasn't. We've offered to do that from the first occasion.
Well,
I don't know.
I heard you there, so I'll like I said, I'll let our chief know.
Can we yell at you at meetings?
Absolutely. My peace cannot be disturbed.
This job ain't so bad.
Like I said, it's a process that has to be done, and that's the education part of it. Most people really don't understand that. That's how it works. And, you can say whatever you want to me, or us as deputies, and it doesn't matter. We just have to sit there, or stand there, however.
Yeah, but calling is really worth it because if nothing else, I'll go in and say, calm it down and give them an opportunity to lower the volume and so forth. And if that doesn't help, then they can come back and take enforcement action. So
yeah,
your call is an automatic citation to the people. They would normally go and say, you're disturbing other people, and give them a chance to remedy that before you go to some kind of citation.
And I'll also point out, if the council does pass this ordinance, these are things that would inform the planning commission's decision. If you have a business that has repeatedly disturbed the peace in advance of trying to get a CUP, the planning commission may not be as likely to grant that CUP if it does get requested by a business.
And a CUP can get yanked.
That's correct.
Okay.
yeah. So thank you for those comments, and I'll see what I can do to get some enforcement out there. With all the comments, there's no action on this, it's just the first reading.
First reading, so we'll need a motion for the first reading.
All right. Item number 12.
No, I'm
So
sorry.
I'll
Mr.
make a
Mayor.
motion that we accept this first reading on item 11 for the ordinance adding musical entertainment in Solvang.
Second?
Thank you, I missed it.
Roll call. Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Arona,
Yes,
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now on to item 12.
Item 12, AB 1234, report out and council closing comments.
Anybody have any closing comments?
I have one. when Scott's sign was up there, or the presentation, you can see it as you come into town, the west end, the Solvang sign really needs to be sanded and painted, because everybody stops to take pictures there, and the paint's chipping and peeling off. So if we could maybe bring that up to the next meeting, or allocate some funds, I'm sure it's less than $5,000, let's get that sign painted. And I meant to bring that up at council comments, so I apologize.
Thank you for bringing that to their attention.
One more thing. I don't know if it's your mast that's really thick. It's really hard to hear. And do you guys hear that? Is it very muffled when Anna Maria is speaking?
Well, normally if she turns her microphone on, it's a lot.
Maybe it's because I'm sitting behind you too.
Good job, Anna Marie.
Or I'm just not used to having somebody in that seat during COVID. But is the audience hearing you well enough?
I think it's a thick mask.
I'm happy to take it all. I
That's what I got.
Council,
I appreciate you keeping it on.
On the AB 1234, on that note, will any of you be attending the League of California Cities? Because that would invoke an AB 1234 report at the following meeting. You're supposed to give a brief summary if the city is reimbursing you for any of the costs going to the league conference.
You're going. You're not.
No, I have decided not to go.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I know, I really wanted to,
I have
but
a son graduating from a police academy in Boise, so.
Okay.
Or grandson.
Well, I don't know. I may not be able to. I know Mayor Pro Tem Arona was planning on attending.
Good.
Okay, it's just more of a reminder that at the next meeting, you will give that AB 1234 report of what happened at the league. So if you have any questions about it, I'm certainly happy to help that out.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, meeting is adjourned at 10:09.